Chapter 1969 Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Teng strikes. 3. However, that strange sense of familiarity surged within him once again. The queen of the snake men race really looked a lot like Kang Yu. Wang Teng couldn't help but scrutinize the queen for a moment as the thought continued to occupy his mind. Yet, upon closer observation, the disparity between them grew obvious. There was a huge difference between the queen of the snake men race and Kang Yu. For some reason, Wang Teng shook his head in disappointment. Wang Teng, take a look. It seems like the core of this formation is that throne. Round ball suddenly spoke up. B0XO. I see it, Wang Teng replied silently, having already noticed it. The surface of the throne was covered in intricate runes that now shimmered faintly. The queen's hands were resting on the armrests, and tendrils of force flowed from her hands into the throne. On the back of the throne, there was a stone wall covered in complex runes that were similarly radiating a faint glow. Attribute bubbles dropped from the stone wall and floated in the air. Wang Teng released his spiritual power and picked up the attribute bubbles. Ancient Poison Runes *80 Ancient Poison Runes *130 Ancient Poison Runes *100 Azure Potion Serpent Array *1 Ancient Poison Runes *160 Her? As the attribute bubbles entered Wang Teng's mind, he suddenly paused, his eyes gleaming with an unusual light. Those attribute bubbles transformed into dark green runes, some of which were the ancient poison runes he had acquired earlier, while others were newly obtained. Regardless of the source, Wang Teng's proficiency in ancient runes had once again improved. Ancient runes, 605,000, specialized. Within a few seconds, his ancient runes mastery went from well-versed to specialized. Wang Teng suddenly felt that his understanding of ancient runes had become much deeper. The same ancient runes, now in front of him, carried a different level of comprehension. These runes gradually vanished, etching themselves into his mind. Subsequently, a massive formation appeared in his mind, composed of countless complex and mysterious runes, slowly rotating and emanating potent fluctuations. The Azure Poison Serpent Array. This was an immensely powerful array. Based on the insights appearing in his mind, Wang Teng knew that this Azure Poison Serpent Array was a divine-level formation. Divine-level arrays were arrays that only divine-level rune masters could create. They were extremely powerful. Furthermore, this array was an exceptionally rare poison element array. Using the Azure Poison Serpent Array to counter the poison tide was indeed an ingenious idea, effectively fighting poison with poison. The individual who laid out this formation displayed remarkable creativity. In no time, Wang Teng successfully incorporated the insights of this formation into his mind, mastering it. On the other side, it was evident that Landon had observed the current state of the queen. A slight smile curved his lips. The queen couldn't move while maintaining the formation. This was his opportunity. If not, he wouldn't be a match for this heaven-stage martial warrior. As for the massive array, he didn't concern himself with it. To him, it was merely a tool to distract the queen. Landon scanned the hall. Based on the bug's senses, the thing he was seeking was here. Where could it be hidden? But after scouring extensively, he found nothing, and his expression turned grim. He frowned. Wang Teng, observing from behind, stroked his chin while also keeping an eye on the sky above. The hall's dome had opened, revealing the sky's condition. Under the relentless assault of the endless poison tide, the Azure Poison Serpent Array showed signs of crumbling. Fine cracks appeared on its surface. The queen wore a serious expression, her eyes gleaming. She seemed to have made a decision and slammed her hands onto the armrests of her throne. The strength within her body swelled out. She was channeling all her internal forces into the formation to sustain it. This was highly perilous. Although she was a heaven-stage martial warrior, the Azure Potion Serpent Array was a divine-level array. The energy it required was enormous. If it kept absorbing forces without restraint, the queen would be drained. However, it was precisely because it was a divine-level array that it could withstand the terrifying poison tide. Otherwise, everyone in the city would have perished. Landon's gaze flickered and landed on the queen. Since he couldn't find it elsewhere, the object he was looking for had to be with the queen. However, she was currently operating the formation, so he didn't dare to make a move. Even if he did, he might not be a match for her. Wang Teng was surprised when he saw Landon stopping his search. Wang Teng, waiting for the queen to exhaust her force, Roundball said. Yeah, Wang Teng nodded, quickly deducing the intruder's intentions. This fellow dared to lay his eyes on the queen. He was quite bold. As moment passed, even after the queen had unleashed all her forces into the array, it was still unable to withstand the overwhelming poison tide. This particular poison tide had been persisting for an unusually long duration, and its impact was terrifying, leaving her feeling powerless. In just over 10 minutes, beads of sweat formed on the queen's forehead, and her complexion turned pale. She was nearing her limit. Crack. Chapter 1970 Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Teng strikes. 4. Cracks continued to spread across the formation. The light shield formed by the array couldn't withstand it anymore. The queen's face darkened as she clenched her teeth, and she unleashed another burst of energy. This time, she didn't just release her force. She released her bloodline power too. A gigantic virtual image of a serpent appeared around her. It was the primordial oceanic serpent. However, this primordial oceanic serpent, when compared to the one that had manifested through Little Chinga earlier, appeared somewhat smaller and less substantial. It lacked that overwhelming sense of ancient majesty that was almost unbearable. To Wang Teng, it appeared that this manifestation of the primordial oceanic serpent was only a facade, lacking the formidable bloodline power that Little Chinga possessed. The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline had 3 abilities: intimidate, plunder, enslavement. B0XO. Yet the image before them seemed to possess, at best, the power of intimidation. The queen hadn't awakened her bloodline power completely. She had merely managed to stimulate it. It appears that this group of snake men all share the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline, Wang Teng murmured to himself. As the phantom of the primordial oceanic serpent manifested, the queen channeled streams of her bloodline's power into her throne. The intricate runes on the throne and the stone wall behind it blaze with dazzling red light. Roar, roar, roar. In an instant, thunderous roars filled the air, echoing through the heavens and earth. Above the array in the sky, massive serpentine figures appeared abruptly. These were composed of concentrated energy, coiling in the skies to defend against the poison tides. This might be the ultimate form of the azure poison serpent array, Wang Teng remarked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation as he observed the intricate patterns in the sky. With a tinge of hope in his eyes, he wished for the complete unleashing of the array's power to withstand the poison tide, allowing them to overcome this challenging situation. After her outburst, the queen's complexion had turned deathly pale, and she appeared fragile and drained. The array no longer required her to sustain its operation, as she had poured her entire reservoir of energy into it. She sat upon her throne, swallowed a small pill, and closed her slender eyes to recover from her previous exertions. Swoosh. At the same time, Landon finally acted. He knew that he couldn't wait for the Snakemen Queen to recover. If not, all his efforts would be in vain. A cold gleam of light struck towards the Queen, and as the attack materialized, Landon revealed his presence and charged directly at her. Who is it? The Snakemen Queen's eyes snapped open, and a cold light radiated from them. She shouted, extending her hand and flicking her fingers towards the approaching intruder. Bang! A muffled sound reverberated within the great hall. The cold radiance had been deflected by the Queen with a single flick of her finger. Landon staggered back over 10 steps, his hand trembling slightly while gripping his spear, a look of disbelief on his face. The Queen's complexion turned slightly paler, though her face was veiled and not entirely visible. Her cold gaze fixed firmly on Landon. Who are you? How dare you intrude into my palace? Who I am is not important. Give me the Azure Sea Pearl, and I'll leave immediately. Landon responded. How do you know about the Azure Sea Pearl's existence? Who are you? The Queen's eyes widened slightly as she asked with a cold tone. Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Teng was stunned. He asked, Roundball, do you know what this Azure Sea Pearl is? I don't know. Roundball shook its head. As expected, the Azure Sea Pearl is with you. Give it to me. Landon didn't want to waste any more time. He assailed the queen again, thrusting his long spear towards her. Boom! Grayish-white flames burst forth, forming scorching spear radiance that surged with intense heat in the somewhat chilly great hall. Me. The queen snorted and summoned a battle sword into her hand, slashing forward. Boom! Their attacks collided and unleashed an explosive shockwave in all directions. The queen let out a muffled grunt, her countenance growing slightly pale as she fell against her throne, a trickle of blood staining her lips. "It seems you're running out of strength," Landon sneered. Stepping forward, he swiftly positioned himself in front of the queen, his long spear pointed at her throat. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, there was a rush of wind as figures swiftly entered the grand hall. Among them was the snake man called Zagu. "Your Majesty." The snake men martial warriors were appalled when they saw this scene. "Don't come over or I'll kill her," Landon uttered coldly. "Bastard. How dare you disrespect the queen? Release her Majesty. If not, you won't be able to depart today." The snake men martial warriors were shocked and furious. Murderous intent seemed in their eyes as they shouted. If it weren't for the queen being held hostage, they would have already rushed forward to kill this audacious intruder. Wang Ting watched coldly from the sidelines and had no intention of getting involved. He didn't know what the Azure Sea Pearl was, but the fact that Landon had gone to such lengths to acquire it meant it must have significant value. However, getting the Azure Sea Pearl wasn't easy. He preferred to let Landon continue his efforts and wait until he secured the pearl before taking action. In his view, getting the Azure Sea Pearl from Landon would likely be much easier than taking it from the queen. Chapter 1971 Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Tung strikes. 5. Master. At this moment, an anxious voice echoed from the passage on the left side of the great hall. Wang Teng was taken aback and quickly turned to see a familiar figure rushing in from that direction. Little Chinga. Wang Teng was flabbergasted. He could hardly believe his eyes as he stared in disbelief at the figure rushing towards them. What on earth was happening? Why was little Chinga here? B0XO. And she referred to this queen as her master? Wasn't her master Kang Yu? Countless questions flashed through Wang Ting's mind, and then a sudden realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. His eyes widened in surprise. Kang Yu was little Chinga's master. If little Chinga called the queen her master, didn't that mean the queen was Kang Yu? But he had just carefully examined the eyes of both individuals, and they looked different. Moreover, Kang Yu and this queen had significant differences in their demeanor and aura. Most importantly, Wang Teng used his real eye to look at both Kang Yu and the queen's appearances, so he knew that their faces were entirely different. How could they be the same person? Wang Ting was left baffled, unable to make sense of the situation. He had a hard time understanding what was happening. Could it be that little Chinga acknowledged the queen as her second master? That seemed to be the only possibility. After all, little Chinga had awakened the most powerful ancestral bloodline of the snake men race, which naturally made her highly regarded. It made sense for her to be trained by the strongest member of the race. Little Chinga, don't come over. The snake men queen looked at little Chinga and calmly cautioned her. She maintained a composed and unwavering demeanor, showing no signs of panic or being under someone's control. Master. Little Chinga looked at the snake men queen worriedly. However, she still obediently stopped in her tracks, watching from a distance. Are you an extraterrestrial human? The queen looked at Landon and asked calmly. That's right. Landon didn't deny it. He nodded calmly and continued, you should know what kind of people we, extraterrestrial humans, are. Don't try to assert your queenly authority. It won't help you. Just give me the Azure Sea Pearl and I might spare you without causing any harm. Extraterrestrial humans? TMPH, what an extraterrestrial human. The snake men queen suddenly chuckled. Why are you laughing? Landon frowned. I'm laughing at how proud you extraterrestrial humans always are, the queen remarked calmly, her smile fading. Enough of your nonsense. Your array won't hold much longer. Hand over the Azure Sea Pearl quickly, Landon said impatiently, detecting the queen's anger. However, he couldn't be bothered with it and frowned as he spoke impatiently. What's so great about the extraterrestrial humans? We know another extraterrestrial human too. He's stronger than you, and he's my friend. If you hurt my master, I will ask him to take revenge for me, little Chinga shouted in anger. You know an extraterrestrial human. Landon frowned again. He didn't expect these snake men to know someone outside of the stellar academies. This was out of his expectation. She's probably talking about me, isn't she? Wang Ting, hidden in the shadows, wore a strangely bemused expression. I think it's you. Round Ball giggled and said, this little girl knows how to use her words. She is putting on an act. That's because she's getting desperate. Wang Ting rolled his eyes, then rubbed his chin, puzzled. But did she just call me her friend? Well, who knows, maybe she just wants to mislead that Landon, Round Ball teased. TSK. Wang Ting pouted. That's right. My companion can defeat 6 Heaven Stage martial warriors alone. Can you do it? Little Chinga glared at Landon without backing down. Defeat 6 Heaven Stage martial warriors alone? Landon was shocked. He wondered if it was a senior from the Stellar Academies. His countenance darkened. Damn it, how could the snake men have such a powerful background? Landon was particularly wary of students from the Stellar Academies, especially the older ones. If he offended those seniors now, it would be troublesome when he returned to the academy. This little girl sure knows how to talk, Wang Ting chuckled. How does it feel to be praised in front of others? Round Ball teased him. Not bad, it feels pretty good. Wang Ting nodded with a smug expression. Round Ball. Landon's countenance turned gloomy, and he finally stated coldly, even if there were other extraterrestrial beings here, today, you won't stop me from taking the Azure Sea Pearl. Hand it over. With that, he forcefully pushed his spear forward, the sharp tip piercing the queen's fair skin on her slender neck, drawing a trickle of blood. You. Little Chinga glared at him in anger. She couldn't believe this guy was unyielding, even after she mentioned other extraterrestrial humans. She was running out of options. I will never pass the Azure Sea Pearl to you. Don't even think about it, the Snake Men Queen said calmly. Aren't you afraid of death? Landon's gaze turned sharp as he glared at the Snake Men Queen. If you kill me, you won't be able to leave this place today, the Snake Men Queen said. Do you think you can stop me with just these people? What a joke. Landon snorted. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Do you think I don't dare to kill you? The instant he finished speaking, flames spurted out from the tip of the spear. The queen's eyes flashed with an unusual glint, and she let out a cold snort. A burst of force erupted from her, blocking Landon's attack. Boom. The queen was forced back, and a mouthful of blood sprayed from her mouth. During the brief conversation with Landon earlier, she had managed to recover some of her force. However, Landon's attack was too close for her to evade, and she had to withstand it. The sudden eruption of force had also caused her injury. You're seeking death. Landon, seeing that the queen still had some resistance left, unleashed a fierce attack without holding back. He had decided to kill this queen and then seek for the Azure Sea Pearl later. He was convinced that the Azure Sea Pearl was on the queen. If all else failed, he would trade the queen's body for the Azure Sea Pearl. He didn't believe that the snake men would not care about the queen's corpse. Boom. The fiery spear glow, carrying the scorching heat of flames, pierced towards the heart of the queen. With no way to retreat, the queen was undoubtedly facing her death. Your Majesty. The snake men martial warriors shouted in astonishment. The spear glow erupted at such close range, so they had no time to rescue her. They could only watch as the spear intent pierced towards the queen's heart. Master! Little Chinga screamed. Wang Ting sighed and, in the next moment, his shape flickered. He still decided to take action. In the next moment, right beside the queen, the space slightly distorted, and a shape suddenly stepped out. He reached out with his hand and grabbed the long spear. Boom! Green flames erupted from the hand, ruining the grey-white flames on the spear glow. Chapter 1972. What physique is this? 1. Boom! A green flame swept out, and a figure appeared next to the queen. The young girl below, upon seeing this figure appear, showed a delighted expression on her pretty face and was on the verge of shouting out. But she realized she didn't know the person's name. She couldn't possibly call him Daddy, right? That would be embarrassing. The Snake Men Queen squinted slightly when she saw Wang Teng's silhouette. There was a hint of surprise in her eyes. B0XO. The other snake men were also surprised, but as they saw their queen being rescued, they breathed a sigh of relief. It's you. Landon was stunned and speechless, his eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the person who had just appeared. He couldn't have imagined that he would encounter the one person he least wanted to see in this place. He desperately wished this person was an imposter, but the unique green flame made him all too certain that the person before him was indeed the one he least wanted to see. Divine flame. Only a divine flame could destroy his ash flame easily. Bastard. Why was this fellow here? Landon felt like he was about to have a breakdown. His scalp tingled and his head was on the verge of exploding. No one could understand his current state of mind. What the F***K? Are you surprised? Are you shocked? Wang Ting looked at him with a smile and asked. Landon. Pleasantly surprised. More like surprised my foot. Landon wanted to punch that smiling face when he saw it. He wanted to smash that face that he despised so much. But he couldn't do it. He just couldn't. This was infuriating. Brother Wang. Wang, why are you here? Lan Deng forced a smile with a twitch at the corner of his mouth. He felt like he could salvage the situation. Although Wang Ting had intervened suddenly, it didn't necessarily mean he was taking the snakeman's side. Maybe he just thought the queen was attractive and wanted to play the hero. I just happened to be passing by, Wang Ting said with a grin. Well, what a coincidence. Landon replied with a stiff smile. Our fate runs pretty deep, don't you think? Wang Ting said with a meaningful look. Landon. What kind of fate is this? It feels more like a cursed fate. Little Chinga wanted to laugh. The atmosphere was so serious, but that guy had managed to make it both funny and awkward. By the way, Brother Landon, what are you doing here? Wang Ting asked, pretending to be curious. I'm not doing anything, I was just passing by, Landon replied with a straight face. Aren't you here to find the Azure Sea Pearl? Wang Ting cut through his lie, grinning. Landon. He knew, yet he still asked. This jerk was indeed quite devious. At this point, he was well aware that Wang Ting had likely been in the hall the entire time and had overheard his conversation with the Snake Men Queen. But Wang Ting insisted on pretending he had just happened to pass by, which was incredibly infuriating. What drove him to the brink of madness was that he almost believed it. Brother Wang, since you already know, why bother asking as if you didn't? Landon took a deep breath, wiping the smile off his face, and asked in a calm tone. Just wanted to confirm, Wang Ting said with a grin. Landon found that every time he spoke with this guy, he couldn't help but feel a surge of anger for no apparent reason. Taking another deep breath, he furrowed his brow and asked, What do you want? Brother Landon, can you tell me what purpose the Azure Sea Pearl has? Wang Ting asked. I can't tell you, Landon replied coldly. This isn't right. Given our relationship, it's heartbreaking that you won't tell me, Wang Ting said, appearing genuinely saddened. Landon felt the corners of his lips twitching. What kind of relationship did they have? It was more like a blood feud. The Parker's family had been at odds with this guy for a long time, and as a member of the Parker's family, Wang Ting was unlikely to let him go. However, for now, they hadn't completely torn each other apart. No. It ought to be said that this guy was exceptionally good at putting on an act. He always had the appearance of harmlessness, yet no one realized if he would strike ruthlessly at any moment. Even he felt pressurized when he was facing Wang Ting. It was the pressure of encountering a formidable opponent. His harmless facade seemed to pale in comparison to Wang Ting. He had to admit that his acting wasn't as good as Wang Ting's. How about we work together to obtain the Azure Sea Pearl first, and then discuss the rest later? Landon quickly changed the topic. Little Chinga's expression tensed up. Was he also here for the Azure Sea Pearl? The other snake men, who were unaware of Wang Ting's identity, thought of him as another extraterrestrial human with hidden intentions, and they watched him like hawks. Even though he had just saved the queen, perhaps it was just a case of one dog biting another. No one realized if this individual was an enemy or a friend. They were extremely vigilant against the extraterrestrial humans. On the other hand, the queen remained calm, giving a subtle signal to the other snake men to wait and see how the situation unfolded. That idea is not a good one, Wang Ting shook his head. Landon remained expressionless, knowing that Wang Ting wouldn't easily agree. I don't even know the aim of the Azure Sea Pearl, so why would I take it? Wang Ting asked. I can only tell you that the Azure Sea Pearl is of great importance, Landon replied. Who knows if you're trying to deceive me and use me as a tool, Wang Ting uttered with a nonchalant smile. In that case, please step aside. I'm taking the queen with me. Brother Wang, you shouldn't be interested in the queen, right? I've heard some people have a thing for this type, could you be one of them? Landon gazed deeply at Wang Ting and suddenly smiled. Chapter 1973. What physique is this? 2. Oh, you've figured it out. Look at how beautiful she is. Of course, I'll like her, Wang Ting said, surprised. The queen. Little Chinga. The other snake men. This fellow was daring. Wang Teng's response was somewhat unexpected for Landon. He didn't anticipate that this person would have such a thick skin, openly admitting his intentions in front of the queen. Since that's the case, I won't disturb you any further. Landon's expression changed a few times as he prepared to leave. B0XO. Since you're here, why rush to leave? Wang Ting chuckled lightly and took a step, suddenly charging towards Landon. You. Landon's face changed drastically. He didn't expect Wang Ting to be so quick to resort to violence. This guy was truly unpredictable, a capricious troublemaker. 1 second, he was still smiling. The next, he might attack you. His expression turned cold. Grey-white flames congregated around his spear as he stabbed it out. Since Wang Ting had initiated the attack, there was nothing more to say. It was time for a battle. During this period, he had improved his strength at the Stellar Academies. He believed that even though he might not be on par with the monster before him, he wouldn't be too far behind. He didn't believe that Wang Ting could keep him here. As a genius, he had his self-confidence. Wang Ting manifested an ice-blue long spear in his hand, and a chilling aura swept out, transforming into icy spear lights. What is this? Landon's pupils constricted. He knew that Wang Ting possessed various types of forces, such as the 5 basic elements and lightning, all of which were incredibly powerful. He didn't expect his ice force to be so powerful too. The chill contained in this spear made even a fire-talented martial warrior like him feel the challenge. What was even more unexpected was that this guy was using a spear. Boom! In the next moment, the two clashed in mid-air, their attacks colliding, each unleashing its formidable power. Flames and ice raged within the grand hall. Half fire, half ice. Little Chinga was forced to retreat to a corner of the hall. The other snake men also stepped back, their expressions filled with grave concern. These two extraterrestrial humans were both Cosmos stage martial warriors, so why was their power so overwhelmingly strong? Only Little Chinga knew just how potent Wang Teng was. He could defeat even Heaven stage extraterrestrial humans. How could a Cosmos stage extraterrestrial human be his match? Beat him up. Little Chinga clenched her fist and shouted angrily in her heart. In the clash of these two forces, the firepower was clearly at a disadvantage, with some of the grey-white blaze being frozen. Bang! As the force of their powers clashed, Landon's figure was forcibly pushed back. How is this possible? Landon's eyes displayed disbelief as he immediately retreated, evading the surging ice spear lights. His ash flame, while not on the level of a divine flame, was a highly unique form of flame. Ordinary ice couldn't even withstand it, let alone freeze it. The fact that the ice could freeze his flame meant that it had to be at least twice as powerful as his flame. Did Wang Ting possess some special ice? Landon's thoughts raced, and he was overwhelmed by this sudden idea. Controlling a divine flame was one thing, but if he also controlled some special ice, he didn't know how to describe Wang Ting's monstrous abilities. It seemed like there was nothing that Wang Ting couldn't possess. Two completely opposing unique powers within one body. Wasn't he afraid of conflicts and explosions? What if one day he lost control, and his body exploded? He didn't even dare to entertain such thoughts, but Wang Ting appeared to be completely unaffected. Let's take this outside. Wang Ting burst through the Grand Hall's vault and soared into the sky outside. Landon's gaze flickered for a moment, and he followed him outside. Inside the Grand Hall, there was a core array, and he didn't dare to recklessly engage in a fight there. If the array were destroyed, the poison tide would flood in, and he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Master. Little Chinga hurriedly rushed to the Queen's side when she saw them leaving. She held her up worriedly. Your Majesty. The other snakemen martial warriors came over too. I'm fine. The snakemen Queen waved her hand. Your Majesty, who is that extraterrestrial human? Do you know him? Zagoo asked carefully. He had completely pledged his loyalty and willingly served as a protector on the Queen's side. Most importantly, the Queen was exceptionally beautiful. That was the only reason. He had initially misunderstood the term serving the Queen. It didn't involve that kind of servitude. Actually, at this point, he would willingly serve her if asked. However, the Queen wasn't that kind of person. But it was true that the Queen liked handsome men and didn't favor those who were unattractive, so her attendants needed to be good-looking. This gave rise to all sorts of strange rumors. The Queen glanced at him with a regal demeanor and didn't respond to his question. Instead, she calmly said, "You all can withdraw and guard outside the Grand Hall." Zagoo was taken aback, realizing he had spoken too much and that the Queen might be displeased with him. He quickly dropped his head. Your Majesty, don't you want us to stay here to protect you? Another attendant asked, concerned. No need, he can handle it. You all can leave, the Queen said. He can handle it. Zagoo and the others were momentarily stunned but quickly understood. They naturally knew who the Queen was referring to, but they were astonished by the Queen's confidence in that particular outsider. Chapter 1974. What physique is this? 3. It looked like the Queen was very familiar with the extraterrestrial human. Did the two of them know each other? Wait. Was this the extraterrestrial human that little Chinga mentioned just now? The one that was able to defeat 6 Heaven-stage martial warriors alone? Gasp. They exchanged glances with one another and gasped. Then, they looked at little Chinga. Little Chinga's expression confirmed their suspicions even more. B0XO. Could it be that powerful individual? Someone who single-handedly defeated 6 Heaven-stage martial warriors alone? What kind of being was that? They wanted to ask. But, looking at the Queen and little Chinga's expressions, it seemed they didn't want to discuss it further. They naturally didn't dare to inquire further and took their leave. In the sky, Wang Ting and Landon stood facing each other. Are you determined to stop me? Landon asked with a cold expression. You won't get away today. Wang Ting looked at him with a smile on his face. He immediately made his move, focusing spear lights on his long spear and thrusting them out. Since his ice talent had reached the immortal level, he had become more and more comfortable using the power of ice, and his ice element combat techniques flowed effortlessly without any awkwardness. Boom! In an instant, a universe stage battle technique was activated, carrying immense domain power as it struck. Ice Devil Spear. The power of ice condensed at a point, forming a terrifying spear light. At the tip of the spear light, there seemed to be a dazzling, ever-shifting cold brilliance, with a subtle release of domain power. Landon's pupils constricted. Force surged out of his body, and the grey-white flames appeared to have been fueled, rapidly surging and swirling on the long spear in his hand. Grey Flame Dragon Spear. A cold shout rang out from him. Boom! In the next moment, the long spear thrust forward, and the grey-white flames instantly coalesced into a fearsome dragon of flame, roaring as it met the attack, bringing forth a wave of scorching intent. The dragon-shaped attack of condensed flames also possessed domain power. Roar! The fire dragon roared, sweeping over and fiercely colliding with the ice spear lights ahead. Boom! Force explosions resounded and echoed in the sky. At this point, the two were completely unrelenting, both determined to defeat the other. They didn't have to worry about damaging the surroundings anymore. Hence, Their attacks were naturally more ferocious and terrifying than when they were in the palace. The power of domain erupted from the mouth of the grey-white flame dragon, rushing toward the ice spear lights. Endless flames engulfed them, completely submerging them. But, in an instant, an extreme chill surged from within the ice spear lights, and domain power erupted instantly. The ice froze the grey-white flames. The fearsome fire dragon roared as it tried to struggle, but the flames on its body continued to freeze inch by inch. Crackling sounds continued to echo, the sounds of freezing. This scene was astonishing. Even the flames were frozen, making it hard to fathom the strength of the ice's chill. All the snake men fighting warriors, including Zagu, watched the battle in amazement, and when they witnessed this, their eyes widened in shock. Too powerful. These extraterrestrial humans were really powerful. The queen was quickly restoring her force. When she was taken captive earlier, she appeared calm and composed on the surface, but her heart was filled with anger. She was the queen of the snake race, but she was held hostage by an extraterrestrial human. This was a humiliation. Thus, she didn't watch their battle. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the throne in the great hall and focused on restoring her force. Little Chinga gazed at the sky, her eyes were filled with Wang Ting's figure. She kept expressing her amazement. He was so strong. Boom! An blast rang out as the flames of Landon's dragon exploded, and the powerful attack dissipated in the sky. Landon's face looked extremely ugly, and he was thrown tens of thousands of meters away by the residual force, barely stopping in a very disheveled state. Damn it! His ice force is only at the first level of the cosmos stage. Why is it so strong? Landon's gaze flickered furiously. He was flabbergasted. He was at the third level of the cosmos stage and was a fire element fighting warrior. However, he was completely suppressed by Wang Ting. What he couldn't accept was that Wang Ting's ice force was only at the first level of the cosmos stage. Defeating the stronger opponent. For a genius, this was undoubtedly a huge insult. But Wang Ting didn't care about what he was thinking. He didn't give him a chance to react. He stomped the void beneath his feet and turned into a streak of ice-blue brilliance, charging towards Landon. You forced me into this. Landon's pupils contracted, and he roared, dragon blood battle physique. Boom. Before he completed speaking, endless grey-white fire erupted from his body, turning into a vast sea of grey-white fire that filled the sky. Then, at an astonishing speed, the grey-white fire retracted and wrapped around Landon's body. Patterns of grey-white fire appeared on Landon's flesh, and an incredibly powerful aura burst forth from within him. It was as if a terrifying beast had awakened inside him. His body began to expand, visibly growing taller. In an instant, he transformed into a small giant. The fire enveloped his body, making him look like a flame giant emerging from the fire. Roar. Faintly, there seemed to be a dragon's roar emanating from within him. As his body expanded and stretched, the vibrations of his blood and bones produced a sound that resembled a dragon's roar, giving it a strangely dragon-like quality. Chapter 1975. What physique is this? 4. Sigh. At this moment, Landon's eyes were crimson, but within his pupils, there seemed to be a mass of grey-white flames burning. The grey-white flame patterns at the center of his eyebrows also appeared to ignite, forming a true flame. When he opened his mouth, a burst of scorching heat emanated. Even the space before him twisted. Wang Ting's eyes flickered with surprise, but he didn't show any signs of backing down. In the next moment, he appeared instantly in front of Landon and thrust his spear at him. Roar. Landon roared angrily at Wang Ting, but instead of using his spear, he retracted it. He then launched a powerful punch. Boom. B0XO. The fist imprint exploded and slammed into Wang Ting's spear. The spear's icy force and freezing energy shattered instantly, sending countless shards of ice scattering in all directions. Interesting. Wang Ting's eyes sparkled with excitement. He hadn't expected that Landon's transformation would bring about such a dramatic change in his strength. His physical power alone had become incredibly formidable. Swoosh. Suddenly, Landon transformed into a blur, moving at an incredible speed. He appeared above Wang Ting's head in an instant and unleashed another punch towards him. The grey-white flames coalesced into a fist imprint, pressing down. Wang Tung snorted. He was thinking too much if he wanted to suppress him. He retracted his ice-blue spear and then threw a punch towards the sky. 5-element fist. Boom. The fist imprints exploded as they collided with each other. Wang Ting was pushed back several hundred meters, showing a hint of surprise on his face. You managed to push me back. Die. Landon, seeing that his attack had an effect, became even more violent. He shouted at Wang Ting and punched him with murderous intent. Below, little Chinga clenched her fists nervously. Why are you shouting so loudly? Do you think transforming is impressive? I can do it too. Let me show you what a true dragon physique is. Wang Ting rolled his eyes angrily and shouted in his heart. True dragon battle physique. Boom. A peculiar force spread throughout his body, and the emerald-glazed flame instantly engulfed him, manifesting the power of the battle form. Green flames filled the sky, completely enveloping Wang Ting, concealing what was happening inside from view. Landon's fist imprint fiercely struck the flames but was like a stone sinking into the sea, swallowed without a sound. Landon's pupils constricted. He looked at the green fire fearfully. After a while, the green flames slowly parted, revealing a figure that made Landon's pupils shrink to the size of pinpricks. Inside the flames, Wang Ting's figure slowly emerged. At some point, he had developed a layer of dragon scales composed of green flames. The lifelike jade-green dragon scales resembled true dragon scales. They covered his body, but Wang Ting hadn't undergone a massive transformation like Landon or emitted scorching heat. Wang Ting appeared to have contained everything within him. Yet, a subtle, indomitable dragon aura emanated from him. Landon's expression shifted slightly as he felt a suppression originating from Wang Ting's bloodline. His dragon blood battle physique started to grow restless under the aura emanating from Wang Ting's unique physique. What kind of physique is this? Landon was flabbergasted. His eyes continuously flickered with disbelief. Come on, let's have some fun now, Wang Ting beckoned to Landon, extending his hand and curling his finger. Roar. Landon's transformed state made him easily irritable. Upon seeing Wang Ting's gesture, he erupted in anger and roared. His anger overcame his sense of awe, and he continued charging toward Wang Ting. Boom. Wang Ting sneered and vanished from his original position. His speed was astonishing, and as he moved, he created sonic booms in the air. In the next moment, the two clashed in mid-air, without wielding weapons. Instead, they engaged in a physical brawl, throwing punches at each other. Boom, boom, boom. Wang Ting executed his 5-element fist with the help of his powerful physical body. The forces of the 5 elements exploded and turned into fist imprints that slammed onto Landon's body. Landon initially managed to defend himself, but he quickly found himself at a disadvantage. The fist imprints shattered his defenses, and the flames covering his body couldn't withstand the overwhelming power of Wang Ting's fists. Bang, bang, bang. A muffled sound echoed as Landon's body in mid-air seemed to turn into a punching bag, constantly deforming under Wang Ting's relentless blows. Little Chinga, observing from below, was left in awe, her wide eyes staring in astonishment. So violent. She was shocked as this was her first time witnessing such a brutally straightforward mode of attack. When Wang Ting fought with the other Heaven Stage martial warriors, he was like a real formidable warrior. He defeated all his opponents with his unparalleled power of domain. However, at this moment, he seemed like a different person entirely, displaying overwhelming violence in a way that left his opponent helpless. For a young girl, such a scene would typically not attract her attention, but as she watched Wang Ting relentlessly pounding his adversary, she inexplicably felt her adrenaline surging. She clenched her fists unconsciously, swinging them a couple of times. Then, she suddenly realized she had gotten carried away and stuck her tongue out in embarrassment. Glancing around, she was relieved that no one had seen her. She certainly didn't want to be labeled as a violent enthusiast. Meanwhile, Zagu and the other snake men were drenched in cold sweat as they watched, their foreheads pounding with anxiety. They knew they were lucky they hadn't provoked these extraterrestrial humans, or else they might not withstand a single punch from them. Roar. In the sky, Landon roared in anger, resembling a wounded beast, continuously howling but ultimately impotent. He couldn't withstand Wang Ting's relentless assault. Every attempt to counterattack was suppressed by Wang Ting's offensive onslaught, leaving him powerless. Then, more punches would land on him. Gradually, Landon lost his ability to resist. The fiery patterns on his body, formed from the flames, gradually dissipated, no longer able to sustain his use of the dragon blood battle physique. Boom! Wang Ting, deeming it enough, delivered a punch to Landon's face, sending his physique hurtling through the air. Immediately after, Wang Ting dashed forward and appeared above Landon, delivering a powerful stomp. Bang! Landon's body contorted, and he spat blood, crashing down towards the ground like an arrow released from a bow. Boom! Almost instantly, his physique hit the ground in Rui Snake City, creating a massive crater that shattered the stone-paved surface, leaving a spider web of cracks surrounding the impact. A cloud of dust rose into the air. Wang Ting gradually descended to the ground and approached the deep pit that had formed. Landon struggled to his feet, coughing up blood continuously. His physique was covered in injuries and he stared at Wang Ting in astonishment. He couldn't comprehend what he was seeing, particularly the blue serpent scales covering Wang Ting's body. What kind of physique is this? Why are you so strong? Landon's voice came out hoarse, filled with an incredulous sense of bewilderment. He couldn't fathom why this guy had always had such inexplicable means at his disposal. If Wang Ting had been superior in some other aspect, he could have accepted it. But to lose in the very domain that he took the most pride in, the dragon blood battle physique, was something he couldn't accept. The dragon blood battle physique was the most powerful physique in the Parker's family. His dragon blood battle physique had also reached the 4th rank, far surpassing most of the talents in the family. Even Strachey, who participated in the League of Talents with him, couldn't be compared to him. It could be stated that, at this moment, Wang Ting had completely crushed his proudest accomplishment and even trampled on it without mercy. Chapter 1976. They type that he should never offend. 1. A massive crater was left in the ground as Landon climbed out of it, looking disheveled, his gaze locked onto Wang Ting approaching from a distance. He couldn't accept this outcome. His 4th rank dragon blood battle physique lost to an unknown physique. What a joke. So he was eager to understand what kind of physique Wang Ting was currently using. The draconic aura, and the blue dragon scales on Wang Ting's body, all indicated a strong connection to dragons, similar to their Parker's family's dragon blood battle physique. Did Wang Ting indeed possess a physique related to dragons, similar to their family's dragon blood battle physique? During the League of Talents, he had sensed that Wang Ting had a physique strikingly similar to their own. B0XO. From the looks of it, his physique was stronger than their family's one. Little did Landon know that at the time, Wang Ting's physique hadn't yet undergone its transformation and still consisted of the dragon blood battle physique. It wasn't just similar. It was the same. But now, the dragon blood battle physique had transformed into the true dragon battle physique, fake. It had already transcended and was many times stronger than the dragon blood battle physique. Will you believe me if I say that this is your Parker's family's dragon blood battle physique? Wang Ting said with a smirk. Landon was stunned for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, "Impossible. Our dragon blood battle physique could never be like this." "Who said it's impossible? You've only bathed in dragon blood and had the luck of the draw to obtain this physique. How much do you truly understand about it?" Wang Ting shot back, his voice filled with disdain. Landon felt dumbfounded and was on the verge of cursing. What did Wang Ting mean by luck of the draw? What did he mean by how much do you understand about it? Their family had spent countless ages researching and understanding the dragon blood battle physique. How could they not understand it? Also, even if they missed something in their research of the dragon blood battle physique, could an outsider like Wang Ting possibly know more about it than they did? This was ridiculous. This bastard was definitely trying to deceive him. He was tricking him. Landon was convinced that Wang Ting couldn't possibly know more than he did. Don't look at me as if you don't believe me. Let me tell you secretly, my physique is the advanced version of the dragon blood battle physique. It's really impressive and powerful. Wang Teng said mysteriously. Land on. To hell with being powerful. To hell with being impressive. He didn't know what to say anymore. He couldn't believe a word Wang Teng was saying. He knew their family's physique inside out, and there was no way this transformation could be part of it. Really, believe me. Anything is possible. You just haven't executed the dragon blood battle physique to its maximum potential. Wang Teng assured, continuing to spout nonsense. Lan Deng retorted, then tell me, how can we bring the dragon blood battle physique to its full potential? That won't work. I can't just tell you such crucial information for free. You'll have to exchange it with something of equal value, Wang Teng replied. Landon was taken aback. Initially, he didn't trust Wang Teng at all. But when he heard this response, he started to consider it. No one would trust in unconditional benefits. However, when there were certain conditions, it could be easier to gain someone's trust. Especially if they considered themselves clever. What information do you want to know? Landon asked, his eyes flickering. Tell me the function of the Azure Sea Pearl and I will reveal the secret of the Dragon Blood Battle Physique's transformation, Wang Teng said. How do I know if what you're saying is true? Landon retorted. It depends on whether you're lying to me, Wang Teng chuckled. Alright, I'll tell you, Landon said, giving Wang Teng a deep look. He nodded and added, but we have to say it simultaneously. Agreed. Wang Teng nodded. The Azure Sea Pearl can control serpent-type star beasts. It's very useful to me, Landon said. Absorb various dragon bloodline powers, causing your constitution to transform, and naturally, the dragon blood battle physique will become more powerful, Wang Teng explained. Both of them spoke almost simultaneously. However, Landon's expression changed suddenly. You're playing me. We've tried this method before, and dragon bloodline power can't make the dragon blood battle physique transform, he exclaimed. Ah, you've tried it before? That's too bad. Wang Teng replied with a hint of regret. He still wanted to fool the other party. He didn't expect to be exposed the moment he opened his mouth. As for the effects of absorbing dragon bloodline powers, it was unclear what might happen. Transforming a constitution was not an easy feat, but you haven't told the verity either. The Azure Sea Pearl can control the serpent-type star beasts. If it's such a simple function, why would you go to great lengths to come here? Wang Ting stated as his expression turned cold, staring intently at Lan Deng. Lan Deng sneered in response, saying, tit for tat. Wang Ting sighed, well, I didn't want to resort to unconventional methods. Okay, let's make it simple. Now, are you going to admit defeat on your own, or should I help you admit it? Landon felt the muscles on his face twitching when he saw the lightning slap in Wang Teng's hand. He was very familiar with this thing. Many talents suffered from it during the League of Talents. Even the female martial warriors who were called goddesses weren't spared. Such humiliation was intolerable for any genius, especially when it occurred in front of a crowd. Chapter 1977. They type that he should never offend. 2. Back then, he made a timely concession to avoid suffering such humiliation in public, but now, he found himself facing the same situation. Landon's gaze flickered. Should he give it a try? He couldn't bear the thought of admitting defeat so easily. He had always believed that he was not inferior to anyone. He had stood behind Strachey before, biding his time, and now that he had entered the Stellar Academy, he continued to bide his time, all for the sake of obtaining that unique divine flame. He believed that as long as he obtained that divine flame, he could surpass the person in front of him. However, things weren't going as planned. He hadn't even acquired the divine flame yet, and he was already dealing with a setback just to meet the prerequisites for obtaining it. If he couldn't obtain the Azure Sea Pearl, capturing that divine flame would remain a pipe dream. He refused to give in. He had invested so much and endured for so long to obtain that divine flame. How could he just give up now? Landon's head lowered slightly, and then he suddenly raised it. His eyes underwent a peculiar transformation, resembling the eyes of a dragon, exuding an icy and majestic aura. Wang Ting's gaze immediately sharpened. Boom. In the next moment, the grey-white flames seemed to be ignited by some unknown power, erupting once again from his body. Wang Tung stood within these flames, surrounded by his blue flames, displaying no fear. He didn't try to stop Landon's transformation. This change reminded him of Straki's semi-dragon state. Landon, being a talented member of the Parax family, probably possessed the same ability. The semi-dragon state allowed him to drop more useful attribute bubbles, so if his opponent was willing to transform, Wang Tung would eventually reap more rewards. Sometimes you have to take advantage of any opportunity that comes your way. He was confident that he could defeat his opponent, even if he was in his semi-dragon state, so he wasn't afraid. Suddenly, the grey-white flames rapidly retreated, disappearing entirely back into Landon's body. Ah! Landon roared towards the sky, veins popping out on his forehead. Waves of scorching hot energy radiated from his head. Boom! A terrifying wave of power burst forth from his body. Simultaneously, Landon's body began to undergo a strange transformation. His body rapidly expanded, muscles bulging, and his tattered clothing burst apart, revealing a series of scale-like armor on his body, glowing like flames. His hands morphed into claw-like appendages resembling dragon's claws. He even sprouted two peculiar dragon horns from his forehead. His teeth became razor-sharp, like a row of serrated blades. When he opened his mouth, a searing hot breath escaped. The transformation he was undergoing at this moment was undoubtedly much more terrifying than when he activated the dragon blood battle physique. Even his aura had become quite formidable, resembling that of a genuine. No, it seemed to be transforming him into a half-dragon. To Wang Tung, this appearance seemed to be somewhat lacking compared to the Solar Dragon Race's transformation. The Solar Dragon Race's members would turn into full-fledged solar dragons, foregoing their human appearance. Under such circumstances, their unleashed power was not to be underestimated. However, the Solar Dragon Race wasn't a real dragon. There was a difference between them. Thus, between the Parker's family's dragon blood battle physique and the solar dragon physique, it was hard to tell which was stronger and weaker. What was clear, though, was that Wang Tung's true dragon battle physique, pseudo, was undoubtedly more potent than both of their physiques. Despite the pseudo label, roar. Landon's transformation was complete, and he let out a furious roar, sending scorching waves of air sweeping towards Wang Tung. Well, that's ugly. Wang Tung wrinkled his nose and waved his hand in disgust. This half-dragon transformation was far more grotesque compared to his true dragon battle physique, pseudo. He found it quite unsightly. To think Landon treated it as his trump card, using it only when he had no other choice. Wang Tung couldn't be bothered to use such a form, even in dire situations. Wang Tung! Lan Deng roared, glaring fiercely at Wang Tung, then stomped his foot. Boom! The ground shattered asunder, creating a deeper pit than before. The surrounding rubble was sent flying into the sky by the unseen force. Landon's transformed form resembled a streak of grey and white, rising from the pit and arching through the air. His body radiated scorching heat. The air around them started distorting due to the high temperature. And the next moment, Landon descended from above, plummeting towards Wang Tung. He extended his clawed hand, aiming to slash at Wang Tung as if he wanted to tear him apart. Wang Tung coldly snorted and extended a finger, directing the gathering of his fire force. Fire Silk Finger. A burst of flames shot out from his fingertip. Bang! The pillar of fire struck fiercely against Landon's claw, producing a heavy thud. Get lost! Landon coldly roared and, with the power of fire on his claw, shattered the pillar of fire in an instant. However, just as the pillar of fire crumbled, a fire silkworm shot out from within, darting towards Landon's claw. What? Landon was slightly startled, but he quickly sneered, reaching out his hand and gathering flames that formed into a gigantic flame hand. Boom! The moment the flame hand took shape, the fire silkworm reached it and collided violently, producing an intense explosion. Chapter 1978. They type that he should never offend. 3. The flames billowed out in all directions. The fire silkworm, despite its small size, caused the flames to explode upon impact, creating a large hole in the fiery hand. It continued its relentless charge towards Landon. Landon's pupils suddenly contracted as he had no time to react. He could only watch as the fire silkworm pierced through the gaping hole in his palm. Splat! In an instant, the fire silkworm passed through the palm of his hand, causing blood to flow freely. Roar! Landon howled in pain. He retreated furiously with an ugly expression. His injured arm kept trembling, and a large amount of blood flowed down. However, the flesh on his wound was squirming. It was recovering quickly. Come again, Wang Tung shouted. He charged forward and punched his fist out. Landon roared in anger. He didn't back down and charged forward. His physique had gotten stronger after his semi-dragon state. He wasn't willing to admit defeat just now and wanted to fight with Wang Teng again. Boom! 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 The two of them continued to exchange blows, moving from the ground back into the sky, their fist imprints colliding violently and producing terrifying explosions. They appeared as if they had transformed into two gigantic fireballs. One was wrapped in grey-white flames, while the other was surrounded by green flames. They kept clashing, separating, and then clashing again. Is that extraterrestrial human not dead yet? Hez back on his feet. So powerful. Hez so powerful. Why does he look like a dragon? Is this the power of an extraterrestrial human? It's truly incredible. The Snake Men martial warriors were filled with amazement as they watched the battle in the sky, their faces showing a mix of astonishment. Zagoo felt parched. He had always considered himself a genius among the Snake Men, confident in his Cosmos Stage strength that allowed him to battle with Universe Stage martial warriors. But now, witnessing the battle between Wang Ting and Landon, he couldn't help but feel a sense of defeat. There was just no comparison. The difference was truly immense. How do they cultivate to become so strong? Why was the difference so huge? Little Chinga looked at the battle in the sky and was deeply moved. Her eyes trembled slightly. At this moment, the queen opened her eyes and gently moved her serpentine tail to stand beside Little Chinga. She placed her hand on her head. Master! Little Chinga exclaimed in surprise. Are you all right? I've recovered a bit, the queen replied. She then asked, do you have any insights after watching their battle? Master, they are both incredibly strong, Little Chinga exclaimed. This is the strength of the extraterrestrial humans. All the extraterrestrial humans I have encountered possess remarkable abilities, the Snake Men queen said. She looked up at the sky and continued, however, that person's ability seems to have exceeded the other extraterrestrial humans. Surpassing the other extraterrestrial humans? Are you referring to him? Little Chinga was astonished. Hez, that powerful. Little Chinga was shocked, finding it hard to believe the extent of Wang Teng's strength. She knew that Wang Ting was powerful, but she didn't expect him to be so powerful in her master's eyes. You'll find out soon. The other extraterrestrial human is absolutely no match for him. Although I don't know why he hasn't used his full power yet, winning is only a matter of time, the queen said calmly. Yes. Little Chinga nodded. If he could defeat Heaven Stage martial warriors, the Cosmos Stage extraterrestrial humans wouldn't be his match either. But, for some reason, for the first time, felt a desire to explore the outside world. She wanted to see what was beyond. The queen cast a glance at Little Chinga's eyes and felt a slight stir in her heart, but she chose not to say more and continued to watch the battle in the sky with her disciple. Chapter 1979. They type that he should never offend. 4. Boom. 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 The two of them struck once again. Landon released all the power of his domain. The 4th rank fire domain was condensed within his fists. With a terrifying impact, he smashed the space as he attacked. Every punch was a domain. However, Wang Teng's flaming domain had just reached the 6th rank, 2 levels higher than Landon's. This was a complete domination. Every punch Wang Ting threw contained the power of the domain, and it was enough to crush Landon. B0XO. Faced with Wang Ting's attacks, Landon quickly found himself unable to defend. His fist imprint shattered, and Wang Teng's attacks struck him forcefully. Boom. Landon was sent flying, his dragon scales exploding into a spray of blood and leaving him in agonizing pain. Impossible. His eyes were bloodshot, unable to accept the fact that, even after activating his semi-dragon transformation, he was still crushed by Wang Teng. How was that possible? How is it impossible? You're just too weak, Wang Ting's calm voice echoed, and he suddenly appeared at Landon's side, delivering a sweeping kick. Boom! Landon's expression changed dramatically, and hastily, he raised his fists, crossing them in front of his chest. However, the immense force caused the dragon scales on his hands to explode, and there was even a faint sound of bones cracking. At the same time, his body flew out uncontrollably. Blood spurted out of his mouth. You're too weak. Wang Ting's voice was heard again. This time, it was behind him. Landon quickly turned around and threw a punch without thinking, but the fist hit only a lingering shadow. Your speed is too slow. Wang Ting's voice still came from behind him. Landon only felt a gust of wind hitting him. The back of his head hurt badly, accompanied by numbness and bursts of lightning, causing his vision to go black. So, after all this time, you haven't made any progress? Wang Teng's voice remained calm as if he were chatting with a friend, but the words he spoke infuriated Landon to the point of wanting to spit blood. Despite his significant speed increase in his semi-dragon form, he still couldn't keep up with Wang Teng's movements. He frantically attacked in all directions, wanting to force Wang Ting out of hiding. But it was useless. The more flustered he was, the less chance he had of keeping up with Wang Teng's movements. Bang! Landon's head took another heavy hit to the back, followed by a series of thunderous bangs, making his already confused mind even more chaotic. Weak, so weak. Why are you so weak? You're not my match. Wang Teng's voice kept coming, driving Lan Deng into madness. Wang Ting. Landon looked up to the sky and howled madly. He was on the brink of insanity and his eyes were filled with bloodshot veins. Degree winking smiley little Chinga gave a frightened expression when she saw this scene. What she had thought was just an act of violence from Wang Teng now seemed incredibly brutal. Is this guy that fierce? Even the queen of the snake men race felt the corners of her lips twitching. She couldn't bear to look at them. As for Zagoo and the other snake men martial warriors, their understanding of Wang Ting's brutality had deepened significantly. In their hearts, Wang Ting had been categorized as never to be messed with. This extraterrestrial human was much more terrifying than the other extraterrestrial humans. In the sky, the battle had reached its final moments. No matter how Landon struggled, he couldn't escape from Wang Ting's grasp. His dragon scales had been completely shattered, even breaking one of the horns on his forehead, leaving him looking quite miserable. However, his head had several new prominent bumps, making up for the lost horn. Boom! Landon's body fell limply to the ground, completely devoid of resistance. His body slowly reverted to its original appearance, but he continued to be twitching involuntarily. However, he hadn't lost consciousness. He stared up at the sky, his face expressing one thought, doubting his life. Little Chinga and the queen of the snake men stared with wide eyes at Landon, who had suddenly dropped in front of them. Both their faces displayed a sense of bewilderment, with slightly open, rosy lips. What was going on? Was it just a coincidence? He came back the same way he went out. Most importantly, he looked pretty miserable. The way his eyes appeared vacant, he seemed to have experienced some kind of mental breakdown. Martial warriors weren't afraid of failure. But, if his mentality was shattered, it would be hard for him to continue on the martial arts path in the future. Thud. At this moment, Wang Ting dropped from the sky, landing gently in the hall. He surveyed the situation inside and wore a somewhat awkward expression. Sorry, it was purely accidental. Little Chinga and the queen of the snake men race stared at his face without blinking. It was hard to tell that he didn't do it on purpose. I'll handle this for now. Seeing that the two were ignoring him, Wang Ting smiled awkwardly and walked over to Landon. He looked down at him, shook his head, and sighed. You know, you didn't have to struggle like this. Whether you endeavored or not, it would have been the same. You're just too weak. Look at yourself now, it breaks my heart. I honestly didn't want this to happen. We're friends, and if I hadn't lost control, I wouldn't have beaten you like this. Landon. His facial muscles twitched uncontrollably, and for the first time, There was a hint of change in his lifeless gaze as he stared at Wang Teng. Little Chinga. The Queen. Chapter 1980. They type that he should never offend. 5. This guy is just shameless. He beat someone like this and has still talking like that. Can't you have some dignity? Even if we're not friends, there's no need for it to get this far. If you had told me about the Azure Sea Pearl information earlier, I definitely wouldn't have beaten you. Wang Teng kept rambling on. Little Chinga and the Queen of the Snake Men race couldn't stand it anymore. Cough tilde B0XO. The Queen cleared her throat. Is your throat bothering you, Your Majesty? Wang Teng turned and asked upon hearing the sound. Little Chinga's expression turned strange. The Queen remained silent for a moment and then said coldly, No. Do you have any other concerns? Wang Teng inquired. The array is on the verge of collapsing. The Queen looked towards the sky and calmly stated. Her tone was as if she was discussing a matter of little importance. The sky was falling, but it didn't matter. The corners of Wang Teng's eyes twitched. He looked up at the sky. Then, boom! An explosion was heard. In an instant, the entire Rui Snake City seemed to be trembling, even the palace they were in began to shake. The array was broken. The Azure Poison Serpent array, which had held on for so long, finally couldn't withstand the pressure. Wang Ting turned his head towards the Queen, his face filled with bitterness. She said it was on the verge of collapsing. It had already collapsed. At a time like this, the Queen still had the heart to tease him. Her character was rather evil. Wang Teng was frustrated. But he didn't have time to think about it. At this moment, a massive gap appeared in the array in the northern part of Rui Snake City. Instantly, countless poisonous creatures poured out of the gap. A dark green mist filled the air, like torrents of dark green rushing in, terrifying beyond belief. Oh no! The array is broken. The martial warriors in the Rui Snake City were in a state of shock. Their faces turned pale, and they began to panic, shouting in terror. Many ordinary snake men who had not yet reached the shelters were immediately overwhelmed by the surging poisonous creatures, emitting screams of agony. The snake men martial warriors fought desperately, launching various energy attacks, but faced with the overwhelming number of poisonous creatures, they quickly found themselves in dire straits. Your Majesty! A figure sped from a distance and appeared above the palace. It was Marong, the Heaven Stage martial warrior. How many people haven't entered the Thousand Serpent Cave yet? The Queen inquired in a serious tone. About 1/3 of the people are still outside, Marong replied with a pained expression. The Snake Men Queen's expression changed. She said to Zhigu and the other guards, Go and block the poison tide to allow the others to enter the Thousand Serpent Cave as soon as possible. But, Zhigu and the others wanted to say something. Their duty was to protect the Queen, and there was still an extremely dangerous individual here. Even though they were not a match for Wang Teng, leaving like this seemed inappropriate. Go. The Snake Men Queen said coldly. Yes. Zhigu and the others replied hurriedly. Figures sped out of the palace, heading towards the poisonous star beasts outside. At the same time, more Snake Men martial warriors from within the city charged out to engage and eliminate various poisonous star beasts. Fortunately, the Snake Men were accustomed to living on the Scorpion King Star, a planet filled with poison, making them well versed in dealing with various poisons. Moreover, the breach in the city was not too large, and most of the invading creatures were below the Emperor level in strength. With their combined efforts, they could barely manage to handle the situation. Wang Ting furrowed his brow, his expression turning increasingly grave as he walked towards the throne within the palace. Little Chinga and the Queen were standing beside the throne. Little Chinga, I need to borrow the power of your bloodline, the Snake Men Queen suddenly said. Master, what should I do? Little Chinga nodded sternly and asked. Place your hand on the throne and activate your bloodline power, the Queen instructed. Little Chinga nodded. She promptly extended her hand, placing it on the armrest of the throne. Boom! A terrifying phantom of the primordial oceanic serpent emerged, instantly surging to thousands of feet in height, exuding a dreadful aura. Among the invading creatures, many were of the serpent variety. In response to this phantom's appearance, All the snake-like star beasts cowered in fear, no longer assailing the people. Even other types of poisonous creatures momentarily halted, their eyes filled with dread. That is, many snake men were astounded. They gazed at the colossal serpent phantom that had abruptly risen from the palace. That's our ancestral serpent. It's our ancestor. Soon, someone recognized the primordial oceanic serpent, and they shouted in astonishment. Her Majesty must have taken action. Everyone, give it your all, and we can certainly hold off the poison tide. Morong's eyes gleamed, and he shouted. The snake men were instantly filled with a strong fighting spirit and sped towards the surrounding poisonous star beasts. The shattered formation had left them feeling despair, but the appearance of the primordial oceanic serpent gave them a glimmer of hope. Inside the palace, as little Chinga released her bloodline power, the runes on the throne and the symbols on the stone wall behind it once again lit up, sending a beam of light shooting into the sky, merging with the array. The broken array gradually showed signs of healing and resealing. Upon witnessing this, Wang Ting couldn't help but stop in his tracks, his eyes showing a hint of surprise. Chapter 1981 Don't Be Afraid. 1. Wang Ting initially considered taking action, as he possessed the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline and even had poison force, making it quite effortless for him to operate the azure poison serpent array. He might even be able to last longer than the queen. After all, just like little Chinga, his primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was fully awakened. Granted, his level of awakening seemed to be not as profound as little Chinga's since he inherited the bloodline from her. Nevertheless, it didn't matter much. With little Chinga unleashing her bloodline power and the attribute bubbles descending at this moment, Wang Teng's eyes lit up, and he immediately started collecting them. Primordial Oceanic Serpent Bloodline * 150B0XO. Primordial Oceanic Serpent Bloodline * 200 Primordial Consciousness * 1000. Wang Ting's eyes gleamed as he realized that he had only obtained a total of 350 points of the Primordial Oceanic Serpent Bloodline this time, which was far less than last time, leaving him somewhat disappointed. Primordial Oceanic Serpent Bloodline, 2150 10,000. First rank. However, Wang Ting also knew that the situation this time was different from the last time. Last time, little Chinga's bloodline had just awakened and burst out in an instant, naturally causing more attributes to drop. But this time, it was just being stimulated, and the bloodline had already stabilized, so it was naturally impossible to drop as many properties as last time. Wang Ting was content. At least there was an improvement. Even a small gain is still a gain. What surprised him, though, was that he once again acquired the primordial consciousness attribute. This primordial consciousness was quite useful. He used this attribute when facing those 6 heaven stage martial warriors. When combined with bloodlust, it became even more useful. Even the auras released by the 6 heaven stage martial warriors couldn't do anything to him. Primordial consciousness, 3700 10,000, first rank. This time, he received 1000 points of primordial consciousness. The primordial consciousness attribute reached 3700 points. Wang Ting felt that his understanding of the primordial conscious had deepened, and the profound sense of vastness in his mind had become even more mysterious. A strange radiance flickered in his eyes as if containing boundless vastness, like a true ancient being. Soon, he returned to his normal state, and that peculiar feeling seemed to have never existed. Wang Ting was a bit disappointed that this time he didn't acquire the 3 immortal level talents attributes. Then, he looked in little Chinga's direction. He had initially been prepared to take action, but since little Chinga and the others had already acted, he had some idle time and decided to take stock of his recent gains. During the previous battle, Wang Ting had already gathered all the attribute bubbles that had dropped from Landon. Constellation Force, Fire, * 8500 Divine Level Fire Talent * 1000 Cosmos Realm Spirit * 3600 Universe Realm Enlightenment * 3200 Ash Flame * 1300 Dragon Blood Battle Physique, 4th rank, * 11500 Dragon's Blood * 1 This is quite a good haul. Wang Teng's eyes brightened. He had not paid much attention earlier, but upon closer inspection, he realized that the attribute bubbles dropped by the other party this time were unexpectedly good. Constellation Fire Force, 4150 50,000, Cosmos Stage 5th level, 8,500 points of Constellation Fire Force. This wasn't a small amount. It allowed Wang Ting's properties to rise to 41,500 points. Very soon, he would break through the 5th level of the Cosmos stage. Divine Level Fire Talent, 12400 50,000. His Divine Level Fire Talent increased by 1,000 points. Landon's fire talent wasn't weak. He had the 4th rank Dragon Blood Battle Physique as well as the Divine Level Fire Talent. Spirit, 462002000000, Cosmos Realm, Enlightenment, 194200300000, Universe Realm. Next were the Cosmos Realm Spirit and Universe Realm Enlightenment attributes. They couldn't be compared to the 6 Heaven Stage Martial Warriors, but it was still a sizable gain. There were also 1,300 points of Ash Flame. As the attribute bubbles merged into his body, the grey-white flame in Wang Ting's inner cosmos grew bigger. Wang Ting didn't pay much attention to it. To him, the Ash Flame was just a bonus. It wouldn't get much attention. Then, there were 11,500 points of the 4th rank Dragon Blood Battle Physique. Landon's outbreak this time was quite fierce, and the attributes he dropped were quite substantial. There was a total of 11,500 points, far exceeding the attribute bubbles he had dropped before. Dragon Blood Battle Physique, 13800 40,000, 4th rank. This was not bad. When Wang Ting's Dragon Blood Battle Physique increased, the True Dragon Battle Physique, Fake, would increase too. True Dragon Battle Physique, Pseudo 5640,000, 4th rank. The True Dragon Battle Physique, Pseudo, didn't increase as much as the Dragon Blood Battle Physique, but it was still an improvement. For Wang Ting, this was all good news. One type of attribute could enhance 2 different attributes, making it a cost-effective gain. What truly left Wang Ting amazed was the last attribute sphere, Dragon's Blood. Landon dropped a drop of Dragon's Blood. At this moment, the drop of Dragon's Blood was floating in Wang Ting's inner cosmos. Is this a real Dragon's Blood? Or? Wang Ting's eyes exhibited a peculiar expression as he glanced within his inner cosmos to examine the drop of Dragon's Blood. Boom! Suddenly, Wang Ting's consciousness was pulled into the blood, and a scene unfolded before him. A massive beast was killed, and then a powerful individual extracted a drop of blood from the beast's body. That's right. The blood of that massive beast, after refining, yielded only a single drop. And that drop of blood was the one currently inside Wang Ting. Originally, this drop of blood had been consumed by Landon, but the system had found a unique way to reclaim it and then bestowed it to Wang Ting. A star beast harboring the bloodline of a true dragon. Wang Ting had a moment of realization. So, this drop of blood was not the true blood of a real dragon but the result of refining all the blood within a star beast carrying the bloodline of a true dragon into a single drop. In essence, this drop of blood was incredibly close to being the true blood of a real dragon. Chapter 1982. Don't be afraid. 2. If I'm guessing correctly, the Parker's family is probably using this dragon blood to activate the dragon blood battle form, achieving that semi-dragon transformation. Wang Ting speculated. This method seemed powerful, but it carried certain risks. A slight misstep could lead to being overtaken by the wild beast consciousness within, making it impossible to return to human form. The reason Landon became irritable and aggressive after using the semi-dragon transformation was because of the influence of this dragon's blood. What use does this dragon's blood have for me? Wang Ting absent-mindedly stroked his chin, unable to think of its immediate utility. He certainly didn't want to end up looking like Landon did earlier, as that appearance was quite unattractive. He didn't like it. Without dwelling on it any further, Wang Ting simply stored the dragon's blood, and the drop of the dragon's blood instantly flew into the center of his inner cosmos, into the black hole. In reality, this process took only a brief moment. B0XO. Wang Ting looked at little Chinga at this moment. Beads of sweat covered her smooth forehead, her soft hair clinging to her cheeks, and her fair complexion slightly pale. It was evident that in just a short time, she had depleted a significant portion of her bloodline power. While little Chinga's bloodline power was strong, her overall strength was still relatively weak. Even the queen had weakened after using her bloodline power, and little Chinga was in no better shape, especially considering she was much less experienced. However, the gap in the formation in the sky was gradually closing, and the number of poisonous creatures entering the city decreased. The snake men martial warriors in the city felt less pressured. It seems I won't need to intervene. Wang Ting breathed a slight sigh of relief. At this moment, with the combined efforts of little Chinga and the queen, they barely managed to maintain the array. However, Wang Teng's thoughts had hardly taken shape before reality delivered a heavy blow to him. Boom! A loud and violent rumble echoed out, and at the gap, a massive star beast suddenly thrust its way out from the green mist and crashed down. Splat! The poison star beasts that were frantically diving into the holes were smashed into pieces. Their flesh splattered everywhere and their bodies exploded. They smashed onto the defense screen like a pile of rotten meat. Colorful blood splattered everywhere. Boom! The entire array began to tremble, and the gap that was previously healing rapidly developed a series of cracks resembling spider webs. In an instant, the sound of the array struggling under the heavy burden echoed throughout the city. The snake men martial warriors looked up. Their expressions changed entirely. A terrifying giant python slowly emerged from the green mist, its massive body looming in the sky, even larger than the whole city. The smaller poisonous star beasts in the vicinity hurriedly fled, not daring to approach in the slightest. The giant python had an entirely jet-black body, with a triangular-shaped head, and on top of its head were protrusions that resembled metal, like two horns or extended scales. Its body was covered in sturdy scales, resembling some form of golden iron, exuding a cold metallic luster. What was most striking was the pair of wings on either side of its body, which seemed like fleshy wings. They stretched out gradually and flapped gently. With each of its movements, the green mist in the surroundings dissipated, allowing people to see clearly. Gasp! Zagu and the others, upon seeing this giant python, involuntarily took a sharp intake of breath. They felt their scalps tingle, a chill running up their spines and into their heads. It's the black-maned python. Marong immediately recognized the giant python and exclaimed, "In the Great Hall." When the giant python collided with the array, the queen immediately spewed a mouthful of blood, her complexion turning deathly pale, and her body nearly collapsing to the ground. "Master," little Chinga said with anxiety. But she was not faring well either. While the queen had shielded her, little Chinga's face grew even paler, and her petite figure wavered as if on the verge of collapsing. The projection of the primordial oceanic serpent on her body trembled slightly as if it was about to break apart. After all, the projection of the primordial oceanic serpent was summoned by little Chinga. With her taking a heavy blow, the projection could not be maintained. At this moment, the cold, unwavering gaze with vertical pupils in the giant black mamba's eyes was fixed on the projection of the primordial oceanic serpent in the direction of the Grand Hall. There seemed to be a hint of highly human-like greed in those vertical pupils. "It's the black-maned python." The queen looked up at the sky, her eyes showing a trace of astonishment. "Black-maned python?" Wang Teng's expression turned serious, but he couldn't help but stroke his chin. "Why does it sound familiar? Come on, one of the tasks you accepted had a requirement to obtain venom from the black-maned python. Don't tell me you've forgotten." Round Ball's exasperated voice sounded in his mind. "Ha ha ha, I recall now. I took on too many tasks and forgot." Wang Teng chuckled awkwardly. "You really something." Round Ball rolled its eyes and said, "This black-maned python happens to be a high-tier imperial-level creature, meeting the requirements, but its strength appears quite formidable, and it appears to be eyeing you while you're plotting against it." Wang Ting paused for a moment, then gazed at the black-maned python, realizing the situation. He said, "I didn't expect that the bloodline power of the primordial oceanic serpent would attract this black-maned python." The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline has a deterrent effect on serpent-type star beasts, but it also has great allure. Most importantly, this little girl is too weak. Otherwise, the black-maned python wouldn't dare to appear, Round Ball analyzed. "That makes sense." Wang Ting shook his head. The bloodline power of the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was indeed powerful, but if the possessor was too weak, It was akin to having an innocent bystander carrying a priceless gem, which would inevitably attract unwelcome attention. Chapter 1983. Don't be afraid. 3. Master. Little Chinga felt the black-maned python's greedy gaze from the ceiling and couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. She bit her lip and looked towards the queen. At this point, the queen had finally realized that something was amiss. Her face turned pale and her gaze shifted several times. Ultimately, she gritted her teeth and urgently said, "Quickly, disperse your bloodline power. Don't continue." She had underestimated the allure of the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline to serpent-type star beasts. Originally, she thought that with the array in place, it wouldn't attract powerful serpent star beasts from outside the array. But unexpectedly, a powerful high-tier imperial-level star beast had been lured here. She couldn't let Little Chinga continue to use her bloodline power. Now, it was an imperial-level star beast. The next time it could be an ultimate stage imperial-level star beast or something even more powerful. The more bloodline power Little Chinga used, the stronger the fluctuations it produced, which would attract increasingly powerful serpent-type star beasts. So she couldn't let Little Chinga continue any further. B0XO. Comet was too dangerous. In the queen's eyes, Little Chinga was more important than all the snake men in the entire city. She was even more important than herself. Moreover, with the appearance of the black-maned python, there was no point in having Little Chinga persist any further. The black-maned python was ruthlessly attacking the gap, and its destructive speed was undoubtedly faster than Little Chinga's efforts to heal the formation. Allowing Little Chinga to continue would be futile. In this situation, it was better to have Little Chinga hide and evade the black-maned python's scrutiny. There might be a glimmer of hope. Little Chinga immediately raised her hand from the armrest of the throne and prepared to disperse her bloodline power. She could no longer hold on. The black-maned python seemed to have noticed Little Chinga shaking her head, and a cold gleam flashed in its massive serpent pupils. It suddenly swung its body, and its tail struck the formation with a resounding impact. Boom! A violent rumble echoed out as the array once again trembled, and the sound of cracking became distinct. The snake men inside the city watched this scene in horror, their faces turning extremely pale. Marong and several Heaven Stage martial warriors looked extremely solemn. They had already expended a significant amount of their forces in operating the array. Now, if the high-tier imperial-level black-maned python entered the city, they might not be able to resist it. It would be a disaster. "Marong, what should we do?" A Heaven Stage snakemen martial warrior asked in a low voice. Marong held considerable prestige among the snakemen. These people were currently in a state of panic, and they all looked to him. "How many people haven't entered the Thousand Serpent Cave yet?" Marong asked in a low voice. "There are still some people in the west and south of the city who haven't come over. Now that poisonous star beasts have invaded the city, they want to come here. But with the hindrance of poison-type star beasts, it's difficult." The Heaven Stage martial warriors didn't finish his sentence, but the meaning was clear. With the poison-type star beasts obstructing them, it would be challenging for those snake men to enter the Thousand Serpent Cave. "Shall we let the martial warriors enter the Thousand Serpent Cave first?" Another Heaven Stage martial warrior suddenly asked. Everyone was stunned. Then, there was a short moment of silence. They weren't the only city on the Scorpion King Star. They weren't the only serpent men either. If their warriors suffered too many casualties in this outbreak of poison tide, they might face difficulties when dealing with other serpent men races in the future. Boom! In the sky, the black-maned python struck again, and it did so leisurely as if it were toying with its prey. A hint of mockery flashed in its cold vertical pupils. The array could withstand the poison tide, but it was also like a prison, trapping those inside. Crack! A clearer sound of cracking came from the array, and the previously healing gap once again widened, spreading outwards. "Don't hesitate any longer. Let the warriors enter the Thousand Serpent Cave. We can't afford to take the risk." The Heaven Stage martial warrior's face turned pale, and he immediately shouted, "Retreat!" Marong gritted his teeth. He had no time to inform the queen, so he had to make his own decision. Bloodshot veins spread in his eyes, laden with heaviness and guilt. He shouted sternly, All martial warriors, retreat to the Thousand Serpent Cave at the fastest speed possible. All the Serpent Men martial warriors were stunned by his order. There was disbelief on their faces. Were they supposed to abandon the ordinary snake men? What are you waiting for? Retreat to the Thousand Serpent Cave, this is an order, Marong bellowed at them from above. Since the decision had been made, there was no room for hesitation. A second of hesitation could mean the loss of several lives. This was all he could do. Marong's voice woke the snake men martial warriors from their daze. They understood the situation, gazed guiltily at the ordinary snake men around them, and were ultimately forced to leave them behind. No. Don't leave us. Take my child away. Help me, save me. The ordinary serpent men who were abandoned instantly panicked, crying and screaming, their expressions filled with fear and despair. In the sky above, the terrifying black-maned python's eyes sparkled with mockery, as if it found the struggles of those below to be very entertaining. However, its main focus remained on the illusion of the primordial oceanic serpent. That was its primary target. Chapter 1984 Don't be afraid. 4. Retract your bloodline power. The snake men queen struggled to get up and urged her anxiously. Little Chinga's face was filled with panic. What should have been a simple action now felt like it required all the strength in her body. Retracting her hand would involve breaking the connection to her bloodline power first. Otherwise, she would suffer a backlash. As she had only recently awakened her bloodline, she couldn't easily control her bloodline power. To retract it smoothly, she needed to concentrate. Don't panic, the queen noticed her struggle and, despite her anxiety, adopted a calming tone to reassure her. All right. Little Chinga took a deep breath and nodded. She was about to close her eyes, making an effort to control her bloodline power. Suddenly, a hand was placed on her slightly tender shoulder. The hand was large and exuded a comforting warmth. Don't be afraid. At the same time, a calm and gentle voice slowly echoed in her ears. Little Chinga was stunned. She raised her head and looked at the person who spoke. A familiar face entered her vision. The face, the hand, and the gentle voice all worked to miraculously calm her frantic heart. It was as if she had found a glimmer of safety. The next instant, a force that seemed to come from the same origin surged into her body through the large hand. Little Chinga felt as though she had been embraced by her father's warmth, safe and comfortable. As the power flowed through her, it revitalized her body, replenishing the immense expenditure of her bloodline power. Her pale face gradually regained a rosy hue. The queen wanted to say something, but at that moment, she was left speechless as she saw Little Chinga's complexion. Get ready. Wang Ting's calm and gentle voice echoed once again. Get ready. Ready for what? Little Chinga had questions in her mind, yet before she could voice them, her body instinctively relaxed beneath the influence of that voice. Boom. Suddenly, the bloodline power that came from the same source as her erupted. A powerful aura rose from their bodies. The bloodline powers merged into one, and the ethereal image of the primordial oceanic serpent, which had initially been 1,000 feet long, suddenly expanded and solidified, now taking on the form of a colossal creature that spanned 10,000 feet. Most significantly, this image became incredibly tangible. The scales covering its body, its intricate patterns, and even the ice-cold, majestic presence in its eyes all underwent a radical transformation. It appeared lifelike. It resembled a genuine primordial oceanic serpent that had traversed the boundless river of time to arrive in the present world. An endless sense of primordial grandeur emanated from the ethereal image of the primordial oceanic serpent, enveloping the entire world. What is this? The queen's eyes widened, her heart thrown into chaos, completely losing her composure. Little Chinga also widened her eyes in disbelief. Her small head was covered in question marks. Even Marong and the other Heaven Stage Snake Men martial warriors were dumbfounded at the sight, completely forgetting to think. Why had the ancestral python's image suddenly become so large? Beyond the barrier, the terrifying black-maned python's pupils contracted abruptly. Within its vertical pupils, a hint of fear surfaced. The aura emanating from within the barrier made it shudder. Terrifying. If the previous image had been seen by it as a mere infant, the image had now transformed into a terrifying adult behemoth. Could there be an even more dreadful adult beast hidden in the structures below? Its current feeling was like that of bullying someone else's child and then, suddenly, the parent emerging to settle the score with it. And this parent was a super invincible muscle man. One punch could make a monster like it cry. Chapter 1985 How Did You Do It? 1. The sudden eruption of the image of the primordial oceanic serpent left everyone in awe. The image of the primordial oceanic serpent, which had already reached a size of 1,000 feet, was shocking in itself. Now, this image had once again expanded and solidified, which was truly unbelievable. The profound aura permeating the heavens and earth was simply overwhelming, and many people even forgot to breathe. Inside the hall, little Chinga, filled with confusion, stared at Wang Ting. Why did he possess the same bloodline power as her? Even the queen of the snake men race was puzzled. However, her question wasn't why Wang Ting had the bloodline of the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline, but rather how he managed to make little Chinga's bloodline power erupt to this extent. The queen hadn't expected that Wang Ting would have the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline, as it was simply impossible in her eyes. Wang Ting was an extraterrestrial human. How could an extraterrestrial human who wasn't a snake man possess the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline? This didn't make sense. So she was just puzzled about how Wang Ting managed to trigger little Chinga's bloodline. Relax, leave everything to me. Wang Ting smiled faintly at little Chinga and said in a calm voice. Oh, okay. At this moment, little Chinga had completely forgotten how to think, and she could only nod blankly. Wang Ting raised his head to look at the sky, his eyes showing a trace of coldness. How dare a mere high-tier imperial-level star beast act so arrogantly? Blank attribute, add it. The primordial conscious attribute increased exponentially. The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline attribute started rising too. In response, the blank attribute rapidly decreased. The enhancement of these two attributes required 10 times the blank attributes to be spent. Without the sufficient accumulation of blank attributes by Wang Ting, it would have been impossible to use them at this moment. Nevertheless, watching the rapidly depleting blank attributes, Wang Ting couldn't help but feel a bit reluctant. In a blink of an eye, the primordial conscious reached the second rank. Wang Ting stopped it immediately. Primordial consciousness, 120,000, second rank. From the first rank to the second rank, there was a qualitative leap. The primordial consciousness that Wang Ting comprehended underwent a tremendous transformation. The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was different. After Wang Ting raised it to the second rank, it didn't stop. It continued rising. Then, it went to the third rank, the fourth rank, primordial oceanic serpent bloodline, 140,000, fourth rank. In a flash, Wang Ting raised his primordial oceanic serpent bloodline to the fourth rank. The fourth rank was enough to deter a high-tier imperial-level star beast. This was how frightening the primordial oceanic bloodline was. However, the consumption of blank attributes was also enormous. After a careful calculation, Wang Ting had spent over 630,000 blank attributes. He glanced at his attributes board. Blank attribute, 3550000 inch. Not bad, not bad. I have 55 million left. Wang Ting breathed a sigh of relief, and his heartache lessened slightly. Then his eyes sharpened, and the bloodline power within him erupted completely. Roar. The primordial oceanic serpent's shadow enveloping him, and little Chinga opened its huge mouth and let out a deafening roar towards the black-maned python. An endless ancient and vast power swept across the heavens and earth. Boom. The black-maned python immediately felt its bloodline being suppressed, and the compelling force made it want to submit. However, it was still a high-tier imperial-level star beast and was extremely powerful. Its eyes showed resistance, trying to break free from the compelling force. Oh, you still want to resist? Wang Ting sneered, and the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline surged within him. His pupils turned into vertical slits, and a strange force flowed out of his eyes. At the same time, within the giant snake pupils of the primordial oceanic serpent shadow, a peculiar force also emerged. It resembled a purple lightning bolt, rushing towards the black-maned python's eyes. Roar! The black-maned python, already in a state of struggle, couldn't react in time and was quickly overwhelmed by the strange power. It became dazed. The power, resembling purple lightning, quickly gathered within the black-maned python's eyes. Roar! The black-maned python alternated between confusion and terror, thrashing madly as its colossal body tumbled through the sky. The layers of dark green mist inside it kept churning, like boiling water. The star beasts inside it fled. On the Scorpion King star, high-tier imperial star beasts were already considered dominant figures. While there might be more powerful beings out there, they rarely ventured from their territories and wouldn't usually appear in a poison tide like this. So, this black-maned python was already considered a top-tier presence within this poison tide. In its frenzied state, other poison element star beasts dared not approach it. However, the black-maned python's massive body still collided with the array, causing the already strained formation to shatter once again. Seeing this, Wang Teng channeled his bloodline power into the formation to maintain its operation. At the same time, a strange power surged from his eyes, emanating from the eyes of the primordial oceanic serpent's phantom. This force seemed to be the final straw that broke the camel's back, as the black-maned python's struggles gradually weakened. The snake-like imprint of that purple electric force was imprinted deep into its soul. Eyes were the windows to the soul. Though it appeared to congregate in the black-maned python's eyes, it was actually seared into the depths of its soul. The desperation in its eyes eventually faded, as if it had given up completely. When it gazed at the primordial oceanic serpent's phantom in front of it, it displayed a hint of reverence and slowly lowered its massive head. Chapter 1986. How did you do it? 2. Silence. The surroundings fell into complete silence. All the snake men martial warriors below halted their escape and stared at the scene in astonishment. The black-maned python has submitted. Morong's mouth was dry, his face filled with disbelief, and his voice was hoarse as he murmured to himself. Other snake men martial warriors exchanged puzzled glances, doubting their own eyes. How could such a powerful black-maned python submit so easily? This was a high-tier imperial-level star beast. It was extremely powerful. How could it surrender so easily? They didn't even know what had just happened. In the great hall, little Chinga's head was spinning. She had awakened her bloodline power, but she hadn't fully grasped its abilities. She didn't know that the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline possessed such a strange ability. The way Wang Ting had manipulated it had completely exceeded her understanding. The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline could tame other serpent-type star beast. Little Chinga felt like she had gained new knowledge. On the other side, the queen also discovered a new possibility. She looked at the primordial oceanic serpent in the sky and then at Wang Teng and little Chinga, her eyes filled with astonishment. "You tamed the black-maned python?" She couldn't help but ask. I don't know," little Chinga replied, shaking her head in a bewildered manner. The black-maned python seemed to have submitted, but she couldn't be certain. "Yes," Wang Teng affirmed. Seeing the two of them looking puzzled, he simply nodded and said, "Let's repair the array first." With the black-maned python no longer attacking, and the continuous infusion of bloodline power, the array was quickly restored and even reinforced. The fourth-rank primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was indeed useful. A little while ago, Wang Teng had elevated his bloodline power far beyond that of little Chinga. At this moment, his fourth-rank primordial oceanic serpent bloodline far exceeded hers. Among the high-tier imperial level and below serpent-type star beasts, the primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was unquestionably dominant. As the formation was restored, no more poisonous star beasts could enter the city. Even the looming presence of the black-maned python above the Rui Snake City discouraged many weaker poisonous star beasts from approaching. Morong and the others regained their senses and were elated. "Save the people!" A shout came out of Morong's mouth. He didn't have a choice just now and could only maintain his martial warrior's ability. Now that the array was healed, the star beasts in the city weren't a threat anymore. "Kill!" The other snake men martial warriors shouted and charged toward the star beasts in the city. The snake men queen looked at Wang Ting and asked, "How did you do it?" Little Chinga couldn't help but gaze at Wang Ting, her large eyes filled with a strange light. Only she knew that he possessed the same bloodline power as her. "This is a secret." Wang Ting smiled mysteriously at Little Chinga after he finished speaking to the snake men queen. Little Chinga's heart skipped a beat. It was so difficult. On one side was her master, on the other was the man who had saved her multiple times. She didn't know which side she should help. The snake men queen felt frustrated when she saw their expressions. She raised this disciple for nothing. "Let's go out and take a look." Wang Ting looked up and flew out. Little Ching and the queen immediately followed, flying out through the dome of the grand hall, suspending themselves in mid-air, and observing the situation all around. "Finally, we are temporarily safe." The queen heaved a sigh of relief, looking at Wang Ting with complex feelings in her eyes. "Thank you. No need to worry, I'm doing this for my own reasons as well," Wang Ting replied nonchalantly. "The star beasts inside the city haven't been completely dealt with. Once I handle them, I'll lead my people to express our gratitude to you." The queen shook her head and said solemnly. Wang Ting glanced around, furrowing his brow, and said, "I'll help you one more time." As he spoke, several massive figures appeared in the sky. They were his spiritual pets. "Kill the star beast," Wang Ting ordered. "What in the world is happening here?" The metal armor flaming scorpion exclaimed, looking up at the sky in shock. Little White and Elizabeth were equally startled, not expecting to see such a terrifying scene when they arrived. Their skin prickled with unease. However, they quickly realized that a protective barrier covered the area above, keeping the swarm of poisonous creatures at bay. This brought them a sense of relief. "Let's go, we can talk later," Wang Ting urged, giving the metal armor flaming scorpion a dismissive kick. "All right." The metal armor flaming scorpion took it in stride and grinned before heading down to engage the star beasts. Little White and Elizabeth acted at the same time, using their formidable power to crush the star beasts en masse. Seeing the three formidable star beasts appear, the snake men were initially startled but quickly realized that these star beasts were not their enemies. "Don't just stand there, come and help." The metal armor flaming scorpion noticed a few snake men martial warriors standing idle and couldn't help but chastise them. "Ah. Oh, right." The snake men nodded blankly and joined the battle. "Put some effort into it. Have you had lunch? Kill, kill, kill." The metal armor flaming scorpion shouted while hunting down star beasts, creating an enthusiastic and motivating atmosphere. The snake men around them were fired up by the scorpion's words and fought even harder. Wang Ting couldn't help but smile and shake his head. This guy knows how to get things going. Chapter 1987. How did you do it? 3. The queen had a strange look on her face, and her thoughts were unclear. "Brother, is there something wrong with this scorpion's brain?" Little Chinga plucked up her courage and asked Wang Ting. Wang Ting almost burst into laughter. Hey, little girl, I heard that. Talking behind my back will make your nose grow longer," the metal armor flaming scorpion shouted. Little Chinga quickly covered her mouth, her eyes showing a hint of guilt. "Ha ha ha," Wang Ting couldn't hold back any longer and burst into laughter, saying, "Don't mind it. It's just an idiot." The metal armor flaming scorpion, unable to argue with Wang Ting's words, metal armor flaming scorpion could only tuck its head and keep quiet. With the addition of Little White, metal armor flaming scorpion, and Elizabeth, the city's star beasts were quickly dealt with, and the efficiency astonished the snake men martial warriors. "Master, it's all taken care of." Metal armor flaming scorpion flew over, seeking praise. "Not bad," Wang Ting nodded. "But Little White killed more. If only your true ability is as powerful as your mouth." "Ha." Little White glanced at the metal armor flaming scorpion proudly. "That's because Little White can split itself into multiple forms," metal armor flaming scorpion protested. "Elizabeth killed more than you too," Wang Ting pointed out. "She's an ultimate stage Imperial level star beast. I'm just at the mid-tier Imperial level. The difference is huge." The The metal armor flaming scorpion lamented, almost on the verge of tears. You can't bully a scorpion like this. Wang Teng couldn't help but tease. You truly are the most useless one. The metal armor flaming scorpion. Little Chinga couldn't help but giggle when she saw its aggrieved expression even though it was huge. Little girl, even you're laughing at me. Metal armor flaming scorpion glared at her, grumbling. Startled by its reaction, little Chinga quickly hid behind Wang Teng. Wang Teng allowed them to play around and didn't intervene. He surveyed the entire city and noticed several attribute bubbles. With a sweep of his spiritual power, he collected them. Constellation Force, Poison, * 500 blank attribute * 1200 Constellation Force, Poison, * 300 blank attribute * 800 Constellation Force, Poison, * 600 1 by 1, the attribute bubbles merged into Wang Teng's body. As expected, most of them contained Constellation Poison Force and blank attributes. Although most of these star beasts were below the low-tier Imperial level and not exceptionally powerful, their numbers more than made up for it. The attributes they provided to Wang Teng were definitely not little. Wang Teng didn't calculate the exact number of attribute points he gained, but he knew that his poison force had a breakthrough after absorbing these attribute bubbles. The force in his body surged and broke through the bottleneck. Wang Teng's Constellation Poison Force rose from the 5th level to the 6th level of the Cosmos stage. It didn't stop. It continued rising. Poison Constellation Force, 1850060,000, Cosmos stage 6th level. Wang Teng glanced at his attributes board and felt quite satisfied with the results. His Constellation Poison Force was once again in the lead, surpassing the other constellation forces by a significant margin. On this planet, it was undoubtedly the easiest to enhance his Constellation Poison Force, as opportunities for growth were abundant and almost ever present. However, significant improvements often required unique opportunities, such as the Ghost Venom Abyss and the Poison Tide. These opportunities came with substantial risks, and individuals lacking strength or unique capabilities might struggle to harness their full potential. Besides the Constellation Poison Force, his blank attribute had increased too. Blank attribute, 3626000. Seeing the changes in his blank attributes, Wang Teng's heartache lessened by another degree. Realizing how much these poisonous star beasts could benefit him, he gazed ahead with a burning determination. He couldn't help but wonder why he didn't notice earlier that, although the poison tide was incredibly dangerous, it was also an excellent opportunity to grow stronger. I wonder how long it will take for the poison tide to pass. The Queen looked up and suddenly said, I hope this poison tide will last a bit longer, he said. The Queen, did she hear correctly? This guy wanted the poison tide to last a bit longer. I meant to say, this poison tide is a bit slow, that's what I meant. Wang Teng quickly corrected himself, coughing awkwardly. This time the poison tide lasted a long time. In the past, it would typically be over in 2 or 3 hours at most, but this time, it's been more than half a day, the Queen said, furrowing her brow. Have you ever experienced such a terrifying poison tide like this before? Wang Teng felt that something was amiss and asked. I've never met one before. The Queen shook her head. What about longer durations? Are there any specific records, like it occurring once every 1,000 years? Wang Teng inquired. Well, the Queen furrowed her brow. She was still quite young and had only recently become the Queen. She hadn't ruled for even 500 years, so she wasn't particularly familiar with this poison tide. This friend is correct. It seems like there is a large-scale poison tide every 1,200 years. Morong flew over from a distance and bowed to the Queen before speaking. Morong, do you know about this? The Snakemen Queen asked. Yes, I've heard my father mention it before. If your Majesty checks our clan's records, you should find relevant documentation, Morong nodded. In that case, it seems this poison tide follows a pattern. Wang Teng pondered for a moment, then urged, quickly fetch that documentation and let's see how long it will last. Chapter 1988. How did you do it? 4. I'll order someone to investigate immediately. The Snakemen Queen nodded. Wang Teng could only wait. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. At this moment, The snake men martial warriors from afar gathered around and respectfully bowed to the queen. They appeared excited, and when they looked at her, their eyes held admiration. Especially after the queen saved the entire snake clan, this admiration had reached an indescribable level. Even the ordinary snake men were beyond grateful. Originally, they had no hope of survival, but the queen's last outburst had miraculously subdued the terrifying black-maned python, which had chosen to submit. Furthermore, the power of the ancestral python that followed helped restore the array, saving them all. In their eyes, it was all thanks to the queen. Because the previous illusion was of their ancestral giant python, apart from Her Majesty, they couldn't imagine anyone else capable of manifesting it. Your Majesty, you saved the entire snake men race. We are all deeply grateful, Marong smiled and said. The queen was slightly taken aback, not expecting everyone to have misunderstood the situation. She glanced at both Little Chinga and Wang Ting, then shook her head, saying, "You've misunderstood. I wasn't the one who summoned the ancestral python spirit. It's not you." Marong was also surprised and looked at the queen as if he thought she was joking. The ancestral python spirit can only be invoked by someone who has awakened the bloodline of the ancestral python, the queen explained. "Isn't it you who awakened the bloodline of the ancestral python?" Marong asked. "It's not me. It's Little Chinga." The snake men queen pulled Little Chinga over and patted her little head. She hesitated over this decision. Exposing Little Chinga's bloodline might bring trouble, but she didn't want to take credit for her achievements. Also, the queen glanced at Wang Teng and had other thoughts. That was the real reason she had decided to expose Little Chinga's talent. Little Chinga. Marong was stunned once again. He looked at the little girl beside the queen in bewilderment. How could it be her? He knew that Little Chinga was the queen's most recent disciple, but he had never imagined that this young girl could be a genius who awakened the bloodline of the ancestral python. "It's precisely because Little Chinga awakened the bloodline of the ancient python that I took her as my disciple," the queen explained. "And she was able to awaken it smoothly because of him." As she said this, her gaze fell on Wang Teng. Marong followed the queen's gaze and was stunned. This extraterrestrial human. That was impossible. How could this extraterrestrial human help their race awaken their ancestral bloodlines? This didn't make sense. If these words hadn't come from the queen herself, he would have probably scoffed in disbelief. But he had to believe the queen. Moreover, it was him who truly saved everyone just now, the queen said, looking at Wang Teng. What? This time, Marong was utterly shocked. The surrounding snake men martial warriors also stared at Wang Ting in amazement. Did this extraterrestrial human save them? For a moment, all the snake men found their worldviews shaken. An extraterrestrial human saved them? This was unbelievable. And wasn't it the ancestral python's manifestation that appeared earlier? How could an extraterrestrial human manifest it? Everyone was filled with doubt. Wang Teng didn't expect the queen to reveal his role, and he felt a bit surprised. Seeing the gazes of the people around him, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. It was an awkward situation. You don't need to doubt it. Little Chinga is only a planetary stage martial warrior, and no matter how strong her bloodline power is, she wouldn't be able to make a high-tier imperial-level black mana python submit, the queen said, looking at the terrifying python above them. Marong and the others quickly grasped the situation. They had to admit that the queen's explanation made sense. A planetary stage martial warrior, no matter how powerful their bloodline might be, couldn't possibly make a high-tier imperial-level black-maned python submit. Their ancestral python bloodline, no matter how strong, couldn't achieve such a feat, so it could only be attributed to this extraterrestrial human. The gaze of Marong and his companions toward Wang Teng became more complex, a mix of incredulity, gratitude, and respect. Zhigu stood among the crowd and looked at Wang Ting. This extraterrestrial human appeared to be of a similar age to him, but his strength was so formidable that it left Zhigu feeling somewhat powerless. He had initially believed he could compare to the talented individuals from the outside, but now, it was clear that he had been overly optimistic. So, from this moment on, he is not only the benefactor of our Rui Snake City, but also an eternal guest of our Rui Snake City. The queen looked at Wang Ting and suddenly spoke to the other snake men. "Noble benefactor, please accept our deepest gratitude." Marong took a deep breath, gazing earnestly at Wang Ting, and then pounded his own chest, producing a deep and resonant sound. Bang! The other snake men followed suit, pounding their chests and offering their respects to Wang Ting. Chapter 1989. How did you do it? 5. Wang Ting was taken aback by this grand display of gratitude. He didn't expect the queen to do this. Weren't they supposed to be highly hostile to outsiders, especially to him, an extraterrestrial human? Why did they accept him so quickly? Was it possible that his charisma was just too irresistible, even to the snake men? Indeed. It seemed like his handsome looks made him popular wherever he went. He chuckled to himself secretly. Then, with a dry cough, he said, "You don't have to be so formal. We're all friends here. No need to be so polite." "That's right, we're all friends." Marong laughed heartily. Little Chinga, watching the scene unfold, couldn't help but feel a sense of joy. Seeing that Wang Ting was being accepted by her people, Little Chinga felt very happy. "Brother, I don't know your name yet," she asked. Wang Ting teasingly responded, "You didn't call me that before." Little Chinga blushed slightly and said, "Well, that was because you pretended to be my father. You don't look much older than me." Wang Ting laughed heartily and introduced himself, "I'm Wang Ting." "Brother Wang Ting," Little Chinga called out. Marong and the others were surprised when they heard their conversation. It looked like they had known each other for a long time. What's more, they had some stories that outsiders didn't know. Zagoo couldn't help but feel a bit envious. In his heart, Little Chinga was the second goddess after the queen, and now she was chatting and laughing with this extraterrestrial human. How enviable. Amid the conversation, an elderly snake man approached with an ancient scroll made of animal hide. "Your Majesty, I found it. This is all the recorded information left by our ancestors about the poison tide," the elderly snake man said as he presented the scroll to the queen. "Let me take a look," Wang Ting said, his eyes shining with curiosity. The elder glanced at the queen hesitantly. When she nodded, he handed the animal hide scroll to Wang Ting. Wang Ting didn't mind the details. He accepted the scroll and began examining it. He quickly found the relevant records, and it was evident that large-scale poison tides had occurred approximately every 1,156 years. The previous one had been 2,389 years ago, and there were even earlier records. These records were quite detailed, and it was not difficult to discern a pattern from them. The interval of approximately 1,200 years was a rough estimate, and in reality, the timing could vary. The poison tide might come earlier or later than expected. Wang Ting handed the animal hide scroll to the queen, indicating for her to take a look. She accepted the scroll and examined it carefully. As she read, her expression gradually became more serious, and cold sweat formed on her back. Large-scale poison tides were truly terrifying. According to the descriptions in the records, each occurrence resulted in significant casualties. Many snakemen branches were wiped out because of it. However, the recent ones had appeared in different regions, so the snakemen of Rui Snake City hadn't paid much attention to the issue. Moreover, several thousand years had passed, and even the snakemen's leadership had changed multiple times. Some snakemen who had witnessed the horrors of the poison tide may have left records to warn future generations. However, those who had never seen it firsthand wouldn't have a deep understanding or feel the need to be vigilant all the time. This time, the large-scale poison tide happened to occur in the region where Rui Snake City was located, and the snakemen of this branch were finally experiencing the terrifying nature of such an event. If the protective array were to completely collapse and allow the poison tide to invade the city, most of the snakemen within Rui Snake City would likely perish. Even if they entered the Thousand Serpent Cave, there was no guarantee of survival. At this moment, the queen's expression became even more complex, and she looked at Wang Ting with gratitude once again. Without him, their entire Rui Snake City might have been annihilated. Even little Chinga, the snake woman prodigy who had just awakened her ancient ancestor's bloodline, might not have survived. "Master," little Chinga said worriedly. The queen patted her head and said nothing more. After reviewing the scroll's content, she took a deep breath and passed it to Marong, who was curious about the situation. Marong, after reading it, couldn't help but gasp. This large-scale poison tide is truly terrifying. Based on the records, this large-scale poison tide can last for 3 to 5 days. Yet, we have only endured half a day, the Snakemen Queen said in a low voice. Marong's expression changed, and he fell into silence. A heavy atmosphere descended upon the surroundings. The Snakemen, who had previously been in good spirits, now had their faces turned pale. The large-scale poison tide was much more terrifying than they had imagined. If they could barely hold on for half a day, what would happen if it lasted for 3 to 5 days? Could they survive this ordeal? At this moment, all the Snakemen turned their attention to the Queen and Wang Teng. "Do you have a way?" The Queen's voice carried a tinge of bitterness. She bit her lip and said, "If you can help us through this life-and-death crisis, I can give you the Azure Sea Pearl." Azure Sea Pearl. Marong's expression changed. He wanted to say something but hesitated. The Azure Sea Pearl was their most important treasure. How could they give it to an outsider? However, considering their current predicament, he fell silent. If all their people are doomed, what's the use of keeping the Azure Sea Pearl? Really? Wang Teng raised an eyebrow and asked, "Seriously?" "Of course." The Queen nodded. "I will also tell you the true purpose of the Azure Sea Pearl. I believe you must be very curious." "I definitely know more than that extraterrestrial human." "All right." Wang Teng nodded. "I will help you survive this poison tide." He had already planned to take advantage of this poison tide, even before the Queen made her offer. Now, he gained another Azure Sea Pearl for free. He had every reason to accept. The Queen felt relieved when he agreed. With his help, their chances of surviving this poison tide should be above 80%. With his strength and an array of endless techniques at his disposal, he might not necessarily have trouble dealing with this large-scale poison tide. This man was different from other extraterrestrial humans. His eyes held absolute confidence. She believed that her judgment was right. "Actually, you don't have to be so polite. We are friends, and helping friends is the right thing to do," Wang Teng added with a smile. The Queen, if she hadn't seen Wang Teng's shameless side, she would have believed him. "This is a pill that can restore your force. Take it." Wang Teng didn't mind her gaze. He took out a jade bottle and threw it to the Queen. A medicinal pill. The Queen was slightly stunned as she examined the contents. She was astonished and exclaimed, "Is this the highly precious medicinal pill crafted by the extraterrestrial humans?" Eagerly, she poured out the contents of the vial, releasing a rich aroma of the pill. "It smells so good." Chapter 1990 Entering the Poison Tide. Discovery. 1. It smells so good. The rich fragrance of the pill permeated the air, leaving everyone's spirits shaken. Even those further away, like Marong and others, could smell the delightful scent of the pill. They looked at the pill in the Queen's hand in amazement. People nearby, even if they only smelled this scent, couldn't help but feel their mouths water and involuntarily swallow their saliva. They had seen pills before, but rarely, and most of them came from extraterrestrial humans. Even so, the pills they received couldn't compare to the one Wang Teng presented. This was a Grandmaster-level pill. A single Grandmaster-level pill was a treasure that would attract numerous strong individuals, not just within the poison erosion world but beyond. After all, sometimes, a single pill could mean the difference between life and death. Pills of this caliber, especially healing Grandmaster-level pills, were crucial for survival. If Wang Ting wasn't a Grandmaster alchemist, he wouldn't have been so extravagant. When little Chinga saw the pill, she couldn't help but remember when Wang Teng disguised as her father. She had felt that the pills he crafted were much better than before, and she had thought it was due to her father's improved skills. However, come to think of it, was brother Wang Teng an esteemed alchemist? She curiously examined the pill, her nose twitching slightly as she smelled the pill's fragrance, which further surprised her. "So, this is a pill? It's indeed more potent than ordinary medicinal pills. The herbs inside are so complex." I can't distinguish the individual scents. Little Chinga thought. She had learned a lot about herbs by staying with Zelly and, despite her young age, knew more than most people. However, at the moment, she couldn't discern the individual scents of the herbs within the pill. Their aromas seemed to have blended together, making it difficult for an ordinary person to identify. Nonetheless, she could sense the pill's incredible quality, which was undoubtedly far superior to the pills her father had crafted. This pill is too valuable. The queen looked at Wang Teng and hesitated. With her keen eyes, she naturally recognized that this pill was not ordinary. Don't worry. I have plenty of pills like this, Wang Teng said casually. The queen blinked her beautiful eyes, staring at him intently. She wanted to know if he was just showing off. He had plenty of these precious pills. Was he giving them away like cabbage? Marong and the others were also stunned by Wang Teng's statement. In their minds, Wang Teng's image suddenly transformed into that of a wealthy individual. Wang Teng, stop boasting. Round Ball quipped. Isn't it the truth? Wang Teng replied with a hint of amusement. Round Ball didn't know what to say. Fine, you're the Grandmaster Alchemist. Eat it. The situation is critical, so there's no need to be reserved, Wang Teng said. If he didn't know that the poison tide would last for 3 to 5 days, he might not have been willing to give away a Grandmaster-level pill so easily. If you still feel uneasy, once the poison tide has passed, you can help me collect some herbs as compensation, Wang Teng added. The queen fell silent for a moment. Hearing Wang Teng's words, she felt relieved and nodded, saying, very well, after the poison tide passes, I will have people collect herbs for you. Wang Teng was mildly pleased. There were many valuable or special spiritual herbs on the Scorpion King star, some of which were required for his missions. Collecting them alone would be time-consuming. But, with the entire snake race assisting, it would be much more convenient. Exchanging one pill for so much free labor was an excellent deal for him. The queen, no longer hesitant, immediately swallowed the potent pill. A fierce surge of force erupted within her, causing her expression to change. She had not expected the pill to be so effective. Without wasting any time, she sat cross-legged in mid-air, closing her eyes to absorb and recover. Marong and the others remained nearby, silently guarding her. Wang Teng paid no attention to them. He knew that it might take some time for the queen to absorb the full power of the pill. Waiting around would be a waste of time. He gazed up at the protective shield. In an instant, he dashed towards it. He quickly arrived at the edge of the shield and observed the swarm of poison-tide creatures outside, his eyes flickering. He had initially intended to venture outside and hunt down the poison-type star beasts within the poison tide. However, seeing the situation up close made his scalp tingle with apprehension. Sir Wang Teng, what are you doing? Marong caught up with him and asked anxiously. I intend to go outside and take a look, Wang Teng replied calmly. Outside. Marong's face showed disbelief, thinking he had misheard. He asked again, you really want to go outside? Why not? Wang Teng asked in return. Marong was stumped. This wasn't a matter of can or cannot. The poison tide outside was terrifying, and while everyone else avoided it, this extraterrestrial human seemed determined to venture out. It looked incredibly suspicious from any angle. Rest assured, I know what I'm doing. Wang Teng knew what he was thinking and smiled. Marong gazed intently at Wang Teng. If it weren't for the knowledge that this extraterrestrial human possessed extraordinary strength and abilities far beyond the norm, he would have considered him quite reckless. However, it was different for powerful individuals. Marong, at most, considered him a madman. If you're going out, you'll need to take the array token with you. I have some extras here. Please take one, Marong said as he handed a dark green jade token to Wang Teng. Chapter 1991 Entering the Poison Tide. Discovery. 2. Wang Teng took it and examined it. He saw numerous runes engraved on it. With his knowledge of the Azure Poison Serpent array, he quickly recognized the connection between the runes on the card and the array. Thank you. Wang Teng cupped his fists at Marong and dashed out of the protective shield. Boom. As soon as he appeared outside the array, a violent rumbling sound reached Wang Ting's ears. It seemed as if countless air currents were rapidly surging, carrying a poisonous mist that viciously swept in with the strong gusts of wind. If one's physical body wasn't strong enough, this powerful wind could easily break through the skin, and the toxic mist within would enter the bloodstream, leading to unimaginable consequences. Wang Ting activated his ancient god body, and with a resounding boom, his blood flowed vigorously as a mysterious and arcane golden pattern appeared on his forehead. The immense power of his physical body surged forth, rendering him completely immune to the surrounding mist and winds. Little ones, it's time to work. Wang Ting waved his hand and summoned Little White, the metal armor flaming scorpion, and Elizabeth. In the end, as soon as it appeared, the metal armor flaming scorpion was buffeted by the fierce winds in every direction, almost toppling over. Wah, 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 the metal armor flaming scorpion cried out loudly. If it weren't for its extremely tough exoskeleton, it might have fared much worse against this onslaught. Of course, this was a testament to Wang Ting's trust in them. Both Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion had exceptionally durable outer shells, and these winds couldn't harm them. As for Elizabeth, there was no need to mention her. Being an ultimate stage Imperial level star beast, she was impervious to the winds. Master, why have you come out here? The metal armor flaming scorpion, with the assistance of Little White, managed to right itself and brandished its pincers, driving away the star beasts in the vicinity, while shouting, "Enough with the chatter! Hunt down the star beasts," Wang Teng commanded sternly. Caw! Little White raised its head and emitted a loud cry, charging directly at the poisonous star beasts surrounding them, beginning the hunt. If there was one who obeyed Wang Ting's orders unquestioningly, it was probably Little White. It acted without a trace of hesitation. Kill, kill, kill. The metal armor flaming scorpion wasted no time either, charging out and attacking the star beasts in the vicinity. Elizabeth smiled faintly, nodded at Wang Teng, and also began her hunt. Wang Teng gazed at the black-maned python. This high-tier Imperial level star beast had already been imprinted with a spiritual mark by Wang Teng, and it had submitted itself to the primordial oceanic serpent. Now, as it saw Wang Teng, it slowly lowered its head, appearing quite docile. Wang Ting touched out and placed his hand on its head. He sensed a chilling sensation and said, "Go." Hiss. The black-maned python raised its head abruptly and hissed. Its massive body swayed as it charged into the mist. The star beasts within the mist were dumbfounded. "Brother, whose side are you on?" The star beasts above the Emperor level possessed considerable intelligence. They had originally believed that, even if the black-maned python was ferocious, it would not senselessly attack its own kind. Little did they expect it to suddenly turn on them and charge in their direction. Something felt amiss. In an instant, the mist roiled violently, and one after another, the star beasts released pitiful screams, their bodies bursting open, turning into clusters of bloody mist. Inside the already intensely foul mist, the scent of blood filled the air. Well done. Wang Teng's eyes gleamed, and he didn't remain idle. Beams of golden light burst forth from his body. Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. This was the first time Wang Ting used this special spiritual weapon after he received it. Now, he had the perfect opportunity to test its power amid this poisonous tide. According to the records of the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture, when one's mental power touched the cosmos stage, one could control 3,333 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. Wang Teng was curious to see how many pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather Blade he could utilize at his cosmos stage. The Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Master made a total of 9,999 Phoenix Golden Feather Blades. This was the limit of the Heaven Realm spiritual power. However, at the time, he only used 4,999 of them because his strength had not yet reached the pinnacle of the Heaven Realm, and he couldn't utilize the full 9,999 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. For now, Wang Teng didn't need to use so many of them. Before his spiritual power touched the Heaven Realm, he wouldn't need it. At this moment, Wang Ting used 666 pieces of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade, and streaks of golden light drew mysterious trajectories around his body. The metal domain was instilled in these mystical paths. Wang Teng was performing the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade exactly as described in the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture. Each of his attacks was unpredictable. Subtly, those golden trajectories seemed to connect, forming a golden mystical bird that flew within the mist. Wherever it went, it crazily harvested the lives of the poison element star beasts. Marong didn't leave when Wang Teng exited the array. Instead, he observed Wang Teng's every move from within the array. After all, Wang Teng was the savior and esteemed guest of their Snakemen tribe, and he didn't want to witness any mishaps befalling him. Especially under his eyes. The queen would definitely blame him. However, the subsequent scenes left him utterly stunned. Chapter 1992 Entering the Poison Tide. Discovery. 3. Then there was the black-maned python, which surprisingly obeyed the commands of this extraterrestrial human. Marong finally believed what the queen had said. This outsider was the one who made the black-maned python submit, thereby saving them all. It wasn't just him who saw this. Other members of the Snakemen tribe witnessed the scene as well. At this moment, their awe of Wang Ting came from the depths of their hearts. This extraterrestrial human was indeed exceptionally powerful. Not only was the strength of his spiritual pets remarkable, but Wang Teng's strength left them in awe. The streaks of golden light shimmering within the mist took the lives of star beasts one by one, even creating a vacuum zone around him. The speed at which he was reaping lives was truly hair-raising. They couldn't help but wonder if they could withstand such an onslaught if they were in his place. Marong kept his gaze fixed on Wang Teng's assault, his expression growing increasingly serious. He was dumbstruck. This extraterrestrial human was too powerful. As a heaven-stage martial warrior, he couldn't find any way to overcome this opponent. It was truly frustrating and disheartening. Outside the array, Wang Teng's eyes shone with a peculiar light, and in the short time he had been using the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade, he had become exceptionally adept with them. Not enough. His eyes gleamed with excitement, realizing that he could control even more Phoenix Golden Feather Blades. He used the 666 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather Blade because his spiritual power was equivalent to the second-level cosmos realm. However, from the looks of it now, he could control more. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Once again, streaks of golden light shot out from his body, converging into the intricate golden trajectories around him, making those trajectories even more complex and mysterious, and also more dangerous. Within a 10-meter radius around Wang Ting, a forbidden zone had completely formed, where no star beast could approach. Real combat is indeed the best way to improve. As he continued to use the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture, Wang Teng's understanding of it deepened, resulting in a significant increase in his attribute values. His metal talent had been upgraded, and his enlightenment had reached the universe realm. Thus, mastering the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture at the cosmos realm was a breeze for him. At this point, he had already utilized 1,333 pieces of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blades and still felt that he had a lot of power left. 1,333 Phoenix Golden Feather Blades was the limit of the fourth-level Cosmos Realm spiritual power. Though his spiritual power was at the second-level Cosmos Realm, due to the extremely high ceiling set by the ancient entity, his second-level Cosmos Realm was equivalent to the fourth. However, he hadn't expected that after reaching the limit of using the fourth-level Cosmos Realm of spiritual power, he still had energy to spare. Wang Teng's eyes gleamed once again, and another 333 pieces of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blades were released. The surrounding trajectories became even more intricate and difficult to discern, and their power increased significantly. Roar. Inside the mist, some powerful star beasts appeared to have been provoked, and a mid-tier Imperial-level poison element star beast charged directly at Wang Teng. Impudent, the metal armor flaming scorpion shouted, eager to rush over and show off. Stay put. Wang Ting snapped impatiently. The Phoenix Golden Feather Blades around him converged into a single entity, transforming into a mystical golden sparrow. In an instant, it turned into a streak of golden light and shot out with terrifying speed. Chirp. The clear and melodious chirping resonated in the sky, piercing the ears and causing mental shock. The mid-tier Imperial level star beast froze in mid-air for a moment, a look of confusion in its eyes. In the next moment, the mystical golden sparrow had passed through its body. Boom! There was an explosion and the entire star beast exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The metal armor flaming scorpion shuddered when it saw this scene. Master is so cruel. Luckily, I didn't go over. Time to leave, time to leave. The metal armor flaming scorpion ran away from Wang Teng dejectedly. It felt that Wang Teng didn't need its protection. He killed a mid-tier Imperial level star beast just like that. What a monster. In the array, Morong's expression froze. He stared at Wang Teng absent-mindedly before turning and leaving silently. He wasn't needed here. Rather than worrying about the other party, he should worry about himself. No wonder the Queen held this outsider in such high regard, even breaking the conventions to treat him as an honored guest. Their inherent beliefs couldn't be easily changed by simple gestures of goodwill. The Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture is truly powerful. I was able to directly annihilate a mid-tier Imperial level star beast after using 1,666 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather blades. Wang Teng also felt extremely amazed. Of course, if he met a divine spirit master at the same level, it wouldn't be so easy. It can be said that in a certain aspect, the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture was extremely powerful, and if the opponent's spiritual technique was inferior to his, they would undoubtedly lose. However, Wang Teng found that at this point, he had reached the limit of the number of Phoenix Golden Feather blades he could use. He wasn't dwelling on this limitation, though. He continued to use the 1,666 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather blades to hunt. Furthermore, he no longer restricted himself to his current position and instead charged deeper into the mist. He wanted to see how thick this Poison Tide's mist was. With the Phoenix Golden Feather blades leading the way, Wang Teng was well protected and perfectly safe. While flying, Wang Teng momentarily froze, as if he had discovered something. His eyes showed a look of astonishment. In this mist, it seems to aid in comprehending the power of the domain. He came to a stop and closed his eyes to sense what was happening. Streaks of golden light encircled him, and the poison element star beasts from all around continued to charge at him, but they were all killed before they could get close to Wang Teng. Chapter 1993 Entering the Poison Tide. Discovery. 4. He continued to meditate with his eyes closed for a while, and then slowly opened them. It seems that a special domain has formed in here, related to the poison domain. Wang Teng felt the faint but distinct presence of this domain power, and his eyes sparkled. He was very surprised, as he hadn't expected this kind of unique domain power to exist within the mist. Demon Lotus Poison Body. Activate. The next moment, Wang Teng's eyes flashed. He activated the Demon Lotus Poison Body and a black lotus flower pattern appeared on his forehead. At this point, Wang Teng already had the golden pattern of the ancient god's body on his forehead, so the black lotus appeared beneath the golden pattern. Between the two, it was as if the black lotus was gently lifting the golden pattern, and there was no conflict between them. Fortunately, both of these patterns were relatively small and could coexist. Wang Teng didn't think too much about it. He activated the Demon Lotus Poison Body to comprehend the domain power within it. Simultaneously, his immortal level poison talent was operating madly to comprehend the surrounding domain. This immortal level poison talent was already inherent in his body, which allowed him to sensitively perceive the special domain power within this mist. Otherwise, even if someone entered the mist, they might not be able to sense it immediately. Wang Teng was a bit excited. While sensing the domain power, he also scanned his surroundings to see if any attribute bubbles had dropped. If there were attribute bubbles, it would undoubtedly save him a lot of effort and time. Many attribute bubbles had dropped from the star beasts he had killed earlier. Wang Teng had picked them up directly without taking a close look. Now, he glanced at his attribute panel and was surprised to find that in just a short while, his constellation poison force was already close to reaching the peak of the 6th level cosmos stage, not far from breaking through. Suddenly, Wang Teng noticed several attribute bubbles with unique colors within the mist. "That's it!" he exclaimed in delight, and his spiritual power immediately reached out to retrieve them. Although there were only a few attribute bubbles, they were enough to make Wang Ting feel the goodwill of this poison tide. "Look," he asked for it and they came. This poison tide was quite understanding. Poison tide domain *420 poison tide domain *300 poison tide domain *360 Several attribute bubbles immediately integrated into Wang Ting's mind, turning into insights. A vivid scene appeared in Wang Ting's mind. Endless black mist swept through, containing a deadly poison. Wherever it went, it was like an irresistible torrent. Within that torrent, various venomous creatures could manifest. They could be illusory or real. But, when they pounced, they would unleash incredibly powerful attacks. Their fangs and claws were all venomous, and any touch would mean death. Even the illusory venomous creatures could release domain power, and when a large number of venomous creatures erupted simultaneously, it would be terrifying. The power of this domain was tremendous. In just a short moment, Wang Teng completely absorbed these insights and comprehended the poison tide domain. More importantly, this domain was not just a simple domain. It had reached the actualization phase. As an actualization phase domain, it could condense without dispersing, undergo some kind of transformation, and switch between the virtual and the real. It was far more powerful than an ordinary domain. Poison tide domain, 82,000, second level actualization phase. Wang Ting never expected that the domain he comprehended here would be in the actualization phase. It was a pleasant surprise. The name, however, seemed a bit hasty. It was named the Poison Tide domain directly. There were 1,080 points of Poison Tide domain attributes. It was just enough for Wang Ting's enlightenment to reach the second-level actualization phase. This was the benefit of collecting attributes. If Wang Ting had to comprehend it himself, even with his immortal-level poison talent and the activation of the Demon Lotus poison body, it would take him a considerable amount of time to get started. After all, the actualized domains were not easy to understand. But with attribute collection, he could immediately get started and even reach the second level in one go. In the future, when he tried to comprehend it on his own, it would be much easier. Having a teacher to guide you is essential, but in the end, your practice depends on your efforts. Collecting attributes was like having someone guide him into the door, although sometimes, he might be guided all the way to the end. But the key was that Wang Teng could become stronger faster than others. Anyway, when it came to poison domains, Wang Teng had already comprehended up to the 5th level in ordinary poison domains, but they couldn't compare to the second-level poison tide domain. Wang Teng believed that this second-level poison tide domain in the actualization phase could almost compete with a 5th-level ordinary poison domain. Based on his insights, the poison tide domain was indeed very powerful. Seeing the poison tide, he knew that the poison tide domain would naturally be incredibly potent as well. Wang Teng had tasted success and was vigorously searching for attribute bubbles while also trying to enhance the poison tide domain by comprehending the domain power within the poison tide. However, he soon realized that it was unlikely for the same area to produce attribute bubbles twice in a short period. The insights obtained in the same area would overlap. For example, if Wang Teng continued to comprehend the same area where he had just found an attribute bubble, the insights he gained would be the same and serve no purpose. So, Wang Ting had no choice but to continue moving deeper. This was undoubtedly very dangerous, as no one knew what lay inside. However, Wang Ting was skilled and fearless. With his Demon Lotus poison body and immortal-level poison talent, he was almost immune to most poisons, so he charged right in. Chapter 1994 Entering the Poison Tide. Discovery. 5. As he expected, the deeper he ventured into the poison tide, the less the poison affected him, and the higher the chances of encountering poison tide domain attribute bubbles. More and more poison tide domain attribute bubbles appeared, and Wang Teng collected them all. His poison tide domain was rapidly improving. In no time, his poison tide domain broke through to the 3rd level of the actualization phase. Poison tide domain, 123,000, third-level actualization phase, this rate of improvement was indeed incredibly fast, almost like riding a high-speed train. Wang Teng was advancing in what felt like a bug mode. With his Poison Tide domain at the third level of the actualization phase, Wang Teng believed it could now rival a standard fifth-level poison domain. He became increasingly excited, and his curiosity about the deeper areas of the mist grew. He was convinced that there must be more treasures waiting for him to explore. Wang Teng's speed surged as he continued to ascend, turning into an arrow shooting upwards. He realized that the mist within the Poison Tide was incredibly thick, to an almost unimaginable degree. If he kept ascending, he would soon approach the Scorpion King Star's atmosphere. However, this was his perception, and he wasn't entirely sure if it matched the reality. The Poison Tide had formed a unique space within, which might not correspond exactly with the outside world. Bang! Just at that moment, a breaking sound cut through the mist, causing the dense fog to roll violently. Then, a dark figure burst through the fog and came hurtling toward Wang Teng. Wang Teng's eyes narrowed slightly, and he let out a cold snort. He pointed forward, and the golden phoenix feathers transformed into a golden divine phoenix that shot out. Boom! An explosion was heard. The collision between the golden divine phoenix and the dark figure created intense waves of forces that rolled in all directions, causing the mist to churn. However, much to Wang Teng's surprise, the opponent did not die. Gasp! A screech rang out as the dark figure suddenly flashed and disappeared into the mist. A high-tier Imperial-level star beast. Wang Teng was surprised. Finally, after the black-maned python, he met another high-tier Imperial-level star beast in this Poison Tide. A high-tier Imperial-level star beast was equivalent to a heaven-stage martial warrior. A mid-tier Imperial-level star beast couldn't be compared to it. It seems to be a giant centipede. Wang Teng furrowed his brow, unable to see it clearly due to the high speed of the previous encounter. Bang! A sonic boom echoed as the dark figure reappeared in the mist to the left. Wang Teng's eyes gleamed. He decided to meet it head-on without using the Phoenix golden feather blades but relying solely on his physical strength. He charged towards it. Boom! With a powerful punch, he created a fist imprint. At this moment, he had activated the ancient god's body, making his physical strength formidable, completely unafraid of the powerful physicality of the star beast. Bang! Wang Teng's fist seemed to land on an extremely hard metal, producing a dull sound, and a tremendous recoil force swept over him, causing him to fly back several hundred meters. So tough! Wang Teng's eyes filled with astonishment. The three-star ancient god's body was absolutely invincible among the Cosmos stage martial warriors, even capable of competing with the average heaven stage martial warrior. But, in front of this high-tier Imperial-level star beast, it seemed to fall short. It seems like my ancient god body needs further improvement. It's not enough now. Wang Teng shook his head, shook his fist, and silently chanted, "True dragon battle physique." Boom! The emerald-glazed flame surged out and quickly condensed on his body, forming lifelike dragon scales. A scorching heat spread, filling the mist and causing it to roll violently, as if it had encountered a nemesis, producing a continuous hissing sound. Phew! Wang Teng let out a breath, and the scorching aura distorted the surrounding space. Again, with a resounding shout, Wang Teng's figure turned into a blur and burst forward. Gasp! The black figure, seemingly having gained the upper hand from the previous collision, showed signs of arrogance. Its massive body swiftly appeared within the mist, abandoning its previous flanking tactics, and directly approached Wang Teng. Indeed, it was a colossal centipede, with a black back and countless tiny legs beneath its belly, giving it a menacing appearance. While moving, the myriad of legs worked in unison, granting the creature incredible speed. Boom! In a flash, Wang Teng appeared right in front of the massive centipede. He threw a punch at its head. The power of his flaming fist condensed into a green fist imprint and came crashing down. Gasp! The enormous centipede didn't expect the sudden and terrifying increase in Wang Teng's physical strength. It bravely took his punch, letting out a pained screech as a result. The punch forcibly sent the centipede's massive body into the thick mist. Wang Ting, moving like a shadow, pursued it, raining a flurry of punches upon it. The massive centipede was caught off guard and continuously took blows, with the fist imprints landing all over its body, causing it to shriek in pain. It twisted its body and wanted to break free from Wang Ting's pursuit. The man and the beast continued to chase and fight their way deeper into the mist. As they continued their fierce battle, Wang Ting realized that the centipede's exoskeleton was extremely tough. Even with his true dragon battle physique activated, he couldn't deliver a decisive blow through sheer physical force alone. He decided it was time to unleash a powerful technique. Hiss, 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 but at that moment, a series of hissing sounds echoed within the mist, sending shivers down his spine. Wang Teng's expression changed drastically, and he hastily retreated. Boom! A mass of black liquid suddenly fell, landing precisely where Wang Ting had stood moments ago. Sizzle! Underneath this black liquid, the surrounding mist emitted sizzling sounds, as if being corroded. It was unbelievable. The mist was already highly toxic, yet it was still corroded by this black liquid. How poisonous was this black liquid? Wang Teng's expression turned grave as he observed this scene. He then looked back at the centipede he had been fighting with earlier. Beside the centipede, giant black shadows emerged from the mist, revealing even more high-level Imperial-level centipede star beasts. These centipedes all looked similar, with green heads and black bodies, numerous legs, clearly belonging to the same species. There was more than one centipede here. The appearance of so many high-tier Imperial-level star beasts was appalling. Wang Teng's expression turned extremely serious as he carefully counted the giant centipedes. There were at least a dozen of them in this group. Facing a single centipede was already daunting, and now, with so many of them gathered together, the countless legs on their undersides were truly hair-raising. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The centipedes were clearly not welcoming to Wang Teng, continuously hissing and warning him not to approach. This situation puzzled Wang Ting, raising doubts in his mind. What was wrong with these centipedes? He suddenly thought of something and activated his real eye to look at the mist behind them. In the next moment, his eyes lit up with intense radiance. Buildings. Deep within the mist, he could see extensive ancient buildings. Chapter 1995. I'm laughing at your naivety. 1. Buildings. Deep within the mist, there were ancient buildings. And not just one building, but extensive structures with clear signs of age, suggesting a long and ancient history. When Wang Ting noticed the unusual reaction of the centipede-like creatures earlier, he had a feeling that there was something peculiar about the source of the poison tide. That's what led him to use his real eye to investigate, and he was stunned by what he saw. The complex of ancient buildings was vast, extending for an unknown distance, seemingly suspended above the mist, traveling with the poison tide. It appeared that these structures would vanish when the poison tide receded. Wang Ting gazed at the sight with a sense of wonder and a profound realization. The buildings were incredibly ancient, bearing the marks of countless years, even through the shroud of mist. He contemplated various possibilities, including the occurrence of large-scale poison tides approximately every 1,200 years. Could these ancient structures hold the key to understanding this phenomenon? Was it a legacy? Or something else? If the large-scale poison tide were to disappear, would these ancient structures also vanish, returning to an unknown location, waiting for the next occurrence of the large-scale poison tide? Hiss, hiss, hiss. The hissing sounds of the centipede-like creatures around him brought Wang Ting's attention back to his immediate surroundings. He took a deep breath, shifting his focus away from the ancient buildings and back to the group of centipede-like star beasts. His expression grew serious. More than a dozen Imperial-level star beasts guarded the area in front of the ancient buildings, and when Wang Ting had peered into the mist earlier, he sensed something uncomfortable within those structures. That feeling wouldn't arise without reason. Although his real eye hadn't revealed any substantial danger, he was certain that some hidden risks existed inside. His ancient building held unimaginable danger, and Wang Ting believed it was best to retreat. Wang Ting's gaze flickered a few times. In the end, he chose to leave. He realized that tackling this situation alone would be very challenging. He must bring Elizabeth, Little White, the metal armor flaming scorpion, and even the black-maned python along. These allies would provide significant assistance. Without any hesitation, Wang Ting chose to retreat. Time was of the essence, and he wasn't sure how long the ancient building would remain in place. If it disappeared, it would be a missed opportunity. The centipede-like star beasts didn't pursue Wang Ting as he left, allowing him to depart. They emitted a few hissing sounds and then vanished into the mist. Wang Ting headed back to Rui Snake City. Elizabeth, Little White, and the metal armor flaming scorpion didn't go far. When they sensed Wang Ting's return, they returned immediately. After a long battle, they were all feeling fatigued and needed rest to recover. "I'm so tired," the metal armor flaming scorpion said with a weary tone, its long scorpion tail drooping with exhaustion. It seemed they had all worked hard. Cat. Wang Ting was satisfied. He took out a recovery pill. Wow. The metal armor flaming scorpion's eyes lit up, and it immediately opened its mouth, swallowing the tiny pill that was barely large enough to get stuck between its teeth. An intense energy wave erupted from its body, revitalizing its spirit. "Core, thank you, Master." The metal armor flaming scorpion laughed like a crow and came forward. Wang Ting didn't pay much attention to the thick-skinned creature and moved on to Little White, who had its head drooping. He took out another recovery pill and placed it in his hand, offering it to Little White. Little White first affectionately nuzzled Wang Ting's hand, and then it opened its mouth to ingest the pill. For creatures of their size, Wang Ting appeared rather small, which made their every move cautious to avoid accidentally injuring him. In truth, it wasn't necessary to be so cautious. Wang Ting's physique was incredibly strong, and even if they attacked, they probably couldn't harm him. Wang Ting then turned to Elizabeth and the black-maned python, tossing them pills to consume. How extravagant. Bulk distribution of pills. Then, he scanned with his spiritual power, extending it through the mist to collect all the attribute bubbles that were released when Little White and the others killed the star beasts. Poison Constellation Force *300 blank attribute *300 Poison Constellation Force *400 blank attribute *900 Poison Tide Domain *200 Poison Constellation Force *600 1 by 1. The attribute bubbles merged into Wang Ting's body and mind, some directly becoming the Constellation Poison Force while others turned into insights. Wang Ting's Constellation Poison Force increased exponentially. Although the attribute values of those bubbles weren't individually substantial, their sheer quantity made for a significant increase in attribute values. Boom! In an instant, Wang Ting broke through again. His Constellation Poison Force rose from the 6th level Cosmos stage to the 7th level. This speed was simply beyond words. In just 2 to 3 hours inside the mist, Wang Ting had broken through 2 levels, advancing from the 5th to the 7th level. If it were anyone else, they couldn't even dare to imagine it. Poison Constellation Force, 870,000, Cosmos Stage 7th level, however, this was just a small breakthrough. Wang Ting was lucky. 800 points of attributes allowed him to advance to the 7th level and enter another realm. The Poison Tide Domain attribute had increased too. However, Wang Ting had just raised it to the 3rd level of the actualization phase. He hadn't reached the requirements for a breakthrough yet. Poison Tide Domain, 603,000, 3rd level actualization phase. Wang Ting glanced at it and stopped paying attention to it. His gaze then turned to the blank attribute. Blank attribute, 3686000 awesome. His blank attributes had indeed surged by several thousand points, which was quite a good harvest. Afterward, Wang Ting summoned Little White and the others back into the space fragment. Then, he took out the array token and activated a portal to enter the array. Chapter 1996 I'm laughing at your naivety. 2. Several poison element star beasts nearby attempted to take advantage of the situation and enter the portal, but Wang Ting gave them a swift slap to deter them. Raging Gale Palm. The star beasts exploded and turned into bloody mist. The rift in the array quickly returned to its original state. Inside the array, Marong and others arrived upon hearing the news and stared at Wang Ting in astonishment. He went deep into the poison tide for 2 to 3 hours and came back unscathed. This ability was astonishing. "Mr. Wang Ting, are you all right?" Marong sized up Wang Ting and asked. "Do I look like something's wrong?" Wang Ting retorted with a smile. "Well, not at all," Marin admitted, realizing that Wang Ting seemed perfectly fine. "Where is the queen?" Wang Ting asked, scanning the area for the presence of the queen, but he didn't see her. "Her Majesty is resting in the palace," Marong replied. "Take me to her. I have some matters to discuss," Wang Ting requested. "All right." Marong nodded and led the way, flying towards the palace. In the present, he had placed Wang Ting on a level equal to that of the queen, and therefore, he didn't dare to show any negligence. As they flew, the snake men martial warriors in the vicinity cast awed glances at Wang Ting. Before long, Wang Ting returned to the palace and met with the queen. She was lounging on her throne, resembling a seductive snake woman, exuding a unique charm. Sensing Wang Ting's arrival, she slowly opened her slanted and beautiful eyes, radiating a glint of interest. She gracefully rose from her seat, her serpentine tail swaying as she welcomed him. She had fully absorbed the effects of the pill Wang Ting had given her and had nearly fully recovered. She was now ready to maintain the array for an extended period. However, she knew that the energy he had infused would keep the formation running for a long time, and there was no hurry. The external poison tide was expected to last for 3 to 5 days, and she was prepared for a protracted battle. Seeing Wang Ting's return, she received him with great respect. This was because she had a very clear understanding of the effects of that pill. This type of pill could quickly restore her own force, which was not something that ordinary pills could compare to. Anyone who could casually produce such a pill must have an extraordinary background. In her eyes, this extraterrestrial human not only possessed great strength but also likely held a respectable status within his people. Most importantly, Wang Ting showed goodwill towards them, unlike other extraterrestrial humans who often looked down on their indigenous culture. This was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity. "How are you recovering?" Wang Ting inquired. "Thanks to your pill, my force has fully recovered, but my bloodline power will still take some time," the queen calmly responded. Wang Ting nodded, as he knew he couldn't help with the bloodline power. Transferring it to her would not be possible. It wouldn't be easy for him to recover his bloodline power. "You ventured into the depths of the poison tide. Did you discover anything interesting?" the queen asked. "Yes, I found something intriguing," Wang Ting replied, surprised that she had picked up on it. He decided not to conceal anything and explained what had happened. "An ancient structure." The queen's eyes displayed astonishment. This was entirely unexpected to her. She had originally thought that something terrifying might exist deep within the poison tide, which was why he was forced to come back. However, she was surprised to hear about the ancient structure. "Indeed, I suspect there might be a legacy inside," Wang Ting mused, stroking his chin. He asked, "Do your ancient texts contain any relevant records?" The queen fell silent for a moment, her eyes showing a hint of embarrassment. She responded, "I'll need to have someone check on it." Wang Ting looked at her oddly. He had a feeling that this queen might not have been the best student in the past. She didn't seem to know much about various topics. However, he didn't expose her and instead nodded, telling her to inform him once they had checked everything. Leaving the royal palace, Wang Ting floated in the sky above Rui Snake City, closed his eyes, and focused on his inner thoughts while waiting for the results. As time passed, over an hour had gone by. Still, he hadn't received any news. However, he suddenly sensed a commotion on the right side of the sky above Rui Snake City. Many snake men martial warriors were gathered there, indicating that something unusual had happened. Wang Ting furrowed his brows. At that moment, Marong flew over urgently, and his expression appeared somewhat unpleasant. He quickly reached Wang Ting and hesitantly said, "Mr. Wang Ting, there are a few extraterrestrial humans outside the formation. They want to enter the city. May I please ask you to go and see if you know them?" For him to say these words, it was a favor to Wang Ting. In normal circumstances, they wouldn't even consider letting extraterrestrial humans inside. No, they wouldn't even consider it. They would just leave them to their own devices outside. Extraterrestrial humans. Wang Teng was stunned for a moment. Then, he nodded and flew over with Marong. The direction was toward the city gate, and outside the formation's light screen stood a group of people who looked extremely distressed. They were desperately resisting the poison tide that surrounded them from all sides. The poison tide not only saturated the sky but also covered the ground with poisonous fog and various venomous star beasts. Even though these individuals were on the ground, they were still subjected to the onslaught of the poison tide. These unfortunate individuals had encountered the poison tide on their way and had been running for their lives. Even when they took shelter in the mountains, they couldn't withstand the tide. They were ultimately forced to come here, where they saw the protective formation around Rui Snake City. This sight filled them with great excitement. Chapter 1997. I'm laughing at your naivety. 3. Open the array and let us in. The leader among them had a proud expression and shouted at the snake men residents of the city as if giving them orders. They were mostly Heaven Stage martial warriors and were from the stellar academies, which gave them a sense of superiority on this planet. In their eyes, the Scorpion King star was just a mission planet, and the natives were like livestock enclosed in a pen. They saw themselves as the masters. In their perspective, would they humbly seek help from a lowly animal, even if they were in danger? Clearly not. They would naturally expect the native inhabitants to assist them. This attitude reflected the essence of human nature. The Queen had also appeared and watched the extraterrestrial humans from the city. She frowned at their arrogance. These extraterrestrial humans were just like the others, continuing to see themselves as superior to the natives. She shouldn't trust the other extraterrestrial humans just because of Wang Teng. They were different. The other snake men martial warriors displayed anger on their faces. They had very little tolerance for extraterrestrial humans other than Wang Teng. If these extraterrestrial humans had approached them with politeness and respect, the situation might have been different. However, now they were in a vulnerable position, asking for assistance, but they still carried themselves with a sense of superiority. This naturally irritated the snake men. Outrageous. If you don't open the array, we will destroy it. Another Heaven Stage martial warrior, infuriated by the snakemen's attitude, shouted defiantly. They believed their strength was substantial enough to break through the formation if the snakemen did not comply. The snakemen queen's expression changed slightly. She could tell that most of these people had reached the Heaven Stage. If they insisted on breaking through the array, the defensive barrier might not hold up against their combined power. The primary function of the formation was endurance, but it had a limited maximum capacity for withstanding external forces. If several Heaven Stage martial warriors were to attack simultaneously, the resulting damage could potentially breach the formation within a short period. However, their words and the disdainful attitude they displayed stirred the Queen's anger. A cold snort escaped her lips, her expression turning icy, even a hint of murderous intent flickering as she stared at the extraterrestrial humans. She didn't understand. They were all extraterrestrial humans. Why was the difference so huge? If these extraterrestrial humans could treat them as equals, the situation might have been different, and they wouldn't mind opening the array. At that moment, Wang Teng arrived, flying alongside Marong, and overheard the remark. He landed next to the Queen, nodded to her, and then shifted his gaze towards the extraterrestrial humans. When he saw the faces of the people outside clearly, a hint of surprise crossed his eyes. They had merely met before. As Wang Teng arrived, it became apparent that those people also recognized him, as they all involuntarily paused for a moment. Wang Teng, the leader cried out in surprise. This was the leader of Feng Mo's team, Wn Dong, whom Wang Teng encountered on his way here. Feng Mo was also in the crowd, staring at Wang Teng behind the array, appearing somewhat bewildered. Boom! But there was no time for further thoughts, as the nearby star beasts charged at them, leaving him in a state of disarray. Swoosh! The poisonous star beast's claw cut across his shoulder, leaving a deep bloody gash with green-tinged blood splattering out. The blood was bright red, but when it met the force of a poison element star beast, it immediately turned green. Feng Mo's expression changed. Despite his poison element abilities, he found himself struggling against the various poisons within the poisonous tide. He quickly raised the sword in his hand, scraping off the poisoned flesh, and then took out an antidote pill to suppress the proliferate of the poison. After taking these measures, his complexion became even more unsightly. Throughout this journey, Feng Mo encountered numerous poisonous star beasts, and the constant battles depleted his constellation force. If it weren't for the support of his antidote pills, he wouldn't have made it this far. Feng Mo was the weakest member of the team, and in comparison to the Heaven Stage martial warriors, he was indeed quite feeble. In normal circumstances, when they faced danger, the other team members would lend a helping hand, considering their shared teamwork. However, in this current situation, everyone was preoccupied with their survival, making it difficult for them to assist him. Despite this, others had saved him twice during their journey, allowing him to survive until now. But compared to the rest of the team, he was the most battered. This contrasting situation between Feng Mo and Wang Ting was quite apparent. While Feng Mo struggled on the outside of the formation, Wang Ting remained unscathed inside. This contrast made Feng Mo feel somewhat inadequate. The expressions of the Snake Men Queen and the others changed when they heard Wang Ting's name. Did they know each other? The Snake Men Queen looked at Wang Ting vigilantly. They had never trusted the extraterrestrial humans. Wang Ting was the first extraterrestrial human to gain their trust in all these years. However, this trust seemed to waver slightly now. Wang Ting, on the other hand, as if oblivious to the change in the Queen's and her subjects' expressions, greeted Wen Dong with a cheerful smile. "Ah, I sent this, someone I know? Wang Ting, both of us are from the Stellar Academies. Let us in." Wen Dong's look shifted as he spoke in a determined tone. "You're my seniors, so I should allowed you in. However, I'm in no situation to make such decisions. I'm just a guest here," Wang Ting replied regretfully, shaking his head. Chapter 1998. I'm laughing at your naivety. 4. That group of snake men is nothing more than natives. If you ask, I refuse to believe they won't open the formation. Wen Dong squinted his eyes and spoke in a cold tone. "Are you opening it?" Wang Ting turned to the Queen and asked. The Queen had caught on to what was happening and said coldly, "The Rui Snake City does not welcome them. You see, you're quite unlucky. They don't welcome you," Wang Ting replied. "Wang Ting, do you want to be our enemy?" Wen Dong's face turned extremely unsightly as he glared at Wang Ting. "Do you want to be my enemy?" Wang Ting's expression changed, his demeanor growing cold as he stared at them. "How dare you? Wang Ting, who do you think you are?" The people behind Wen Dong were becoming annoyed by the encroaching star beasts, and they erupted in anger when they heard Wang Ting's words. Wang Ting remained unfazed, simply looking at them with a calm demeanor as if he were observing a group of clowns. "Wang Ting, I admit that you have talent, and being a star-ranking genius does sound impressive, but don't think too highly of yourself. Without growth, even the most talented individual amounts to nothing. Today, you don't understand the importance of respecting your seniors. I can teach you." Wen Dong glared at Wang Ting coldly, and his eyes emitted a dangerous gleam. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Everything was ready for war. The people behind Wen Dong were also glaring at Wang Ting with cold expressions, seemingly ready to act upon his command. The Queen and her subordinates had serious expressions and remained cautious. However, they felt a strange sense of relief when they saw that Wang Ting and the others were not in agreement. To them, concepts like the Stellar Academies and star-ranking prodigies were beyond their comprehension and not worth understanding. They only knew that as long as Wang Ting wasn't with the other group, he was still their friend. "Ha ha ha," Wang Ting laughed. "Ha ha ha," Wang Ting suddenly burst into laughter. The Queen and the others were taken aback, staring at Wang Ting in confusion. They couldn't understand why he was laughing at a time like this. What was so funny about what the person said just now? "What are you giggling at?" Wen Dong sensed the mockery in Wang Ting's laughter and became extremely displeased. He asked with a cold tone, "Laughing at your naivety?" Wang Ting glanced at them and continued, "Just because you are older doesn't mean you can act arrogantly. Do you think being older grants you honor? You've been practicing for countless years and are still at the heaven stage. It's quite embarrassing, and you dare to come here and act arrogantly? A bunch of nothings. Teaching me to respect seniority? Who do you think you are?" These words caused Wen Dong's face to turn red, then black, and finally, a shade of green. His facial expression changed 3 times in an instant, which was quite a spectacle. The people behind him wore equally unpleasant expressions. It was the first time they had been so blatantly ridiculed about their senior status. Their past experience with junior members had always involved respect and deference to the seniority hierarchy, which had created a certain expectation that junior members should respect their seniors. Moreover, their strength was indeed superior to that of new students, which naturally deterred the new students from provoking them. But now, Wang Ting didn't even consider them a threat. Even when facing a group of heaven-stage individuals, Wang Ting continued to berate them. His audacity was beyond what a normal person would have. Feng Mo was left stunned. Even he couldn't help but feel a certain level of admiration for Wang Ting. He dared to scold the senior students. Was he overestimating himself? Wasn't he afraid the seniors would force their way in? A group of heaven-stage martial warriors was no joke, and it was doubtful that the barrier could hold them back. Even though Feng Mo considered himself a genius, he couldn't help but tone down his arrogance in the presence of the senior students, respecting the pecking order. So why did Wang Ting act so arrogantly? Feng Mo didn't understand. On the other side, the Queen and the others looked at Wang Ting with strange expressions. They noticed that this guy's skill at insulting people didn't seem much weaker than his strength. What a sharp tongue. Ahem, Wang Ting cleared his throat and said, "Don't look at me like that. I'm not very familiar with them." "We can see that," the Queen nodded. "Glad you can see that. It saves me from being thrown out with them later," Wang Ting remarked. The Queen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was indeed different from most other extraterrestrial humans. He had his pride, but it wasn't the condescending type of pride towards the natives. It was a deep-seated self-confidence and pride that made him unafraid even when facing stronger individuals. She had never encountered such a person. Those extraterrestrial humans might appear proud, but they didn't have his kind of unwavering conviction. When they met someone stronger than themselves, they would bow and submit. Their so-called arrogance only earned contempt from others. "Wang Ting, you're looking for death." Wen Dong, annoyed and humiliated, yelled at the people behind him, "Break the formation for me." The group of people fought to fend off the surrounding star beasts and gathered together, getting ready to launch an attack on the array. "Since you want to fight, I'll play with you." Wang Ting sneered and suddenly dashed out of the array. He held the array token in his hand, permitting him to pass through the barrier unhindered. "Ha ha ha, fool. You dare to run out." Wen Dong chuckled triumphantly, leaving his companions behind and charging directly at Wang Ting. Initially, he wanted to shatter the array first, but when he saw Wang Ting running out on his own, his resentment towards Wang Ting placed catching him as the top priority. Earth Dragon Claw. A fierce call escaped his lips. Chapter 1999. I'm laughing at your naivety. 5. His body unleashed a surge of constellation Earth force, which coalesced into a massive earth-yellow claw in midair. It viciously swiped toward Wang Ting. Wang Ting's eyes flashed with determination as he let out a cold snort and fearlessly countered the attack. In the face of a heaven-stage martial warrior, he showed no signs of holding back. Ancient God's Body, activated. True Dragon Battle Physique, activate. The emerald-glazed flame swept out and turned into flames. Wang Ting stepped out of the sea of fire and released his fist along with the flames. 5-element fist. The flames congregated into a fist imprint and smashed out with the terrifying physical strength of these two powerful physiques. Boom. The surrounding space collapsed, producing deafening noises. This display of power caused a slight change in Dong's expression, but his attack had already been unleashed, and it was too late to change tactics. Bang! Wang Ting's fist imprint formed by the green flame clashed violently with Dong's sharp yellow claw, creating a tremendous and intense collision. Crack! A crisp sound rang out, and the seemingly sturdy and thick earthy yellow claw displayed cracks under Wang Ting's fist imprint. In the next moment, the gigantic earthy yellow claw explosively shattered with a resounding boom. Dong's expression changed once again. The scorching heat and immense power surged directly toward him. He stumbled back 10 steps before managing to halt his movement, his eyes filled with disbelief as he stared at Wang Ting as if he had seen a ghost. The faces of the people behind Dong were also filled with astonishment, clearly taken aback by Wang Ting's sudden burst of power. Feng Mo wore an incredulous expression, finding it hard to believe what he had just witnessed. What did he see? The fact that Wang Ting had directly clashed with their team leader and gained the upper hand left them all in disbelief. Dong had been chosen as their team leader due to his superior strength, having reached the 4th level of Heaven stage. Wang Ting, on the other hand, was only at the Cosmos stage. Yet he had forcefully pushed Dong back. It was unbelievable. They were both freshmen. How could the difference be so huge? This encounter had severely shaken his confidence. The Queen was well aware that Wang Ting's strength far surpassed the Cosmos stage. He had even defeated a Heaven stage opponent in the past. Therefore, she had no concerns about his ability to overcome their current opponents. However, the opposing group had more members, with 7 Heaven stage martial warriors and another Cosmos stage martial warrior, who seemed to be the easiest to deal with. So, she also charged out of the array, standing side by side with Wang Ting, gazing coldly at Dong and his group. Wang Ting gave the Queen a nod, and without any hesitation, he capitalized on his advantage and struck out with another punch towards Dong. Bastard! Dong felt insulted. He was being suppressed by a Cosmos stage martial warrior and the other party was even chasing and hitting him. This was a great humiliation. Boom! His eyes gleamed with a cold light, filled with resentment. The constellation Earth Force in his body erupted. I don't believe that a Cosmos stage martial warrior like you can contend with me. N0v3 LTR0VE served as the original host for this chapter's release on N0v3 LB1N. Dong snorted. His constellation Earth Force condensed into a fist imprint and he released a powerful punch. As he launched the attack, the illusion of a mountain appeared behind him. 7 mountains crumbling fists. Dong roared, and the punch, along with the illusion of the mountain, descended upon Wang Ting. Wang Ting's gaze narrowed as he felt a different kind of power within this punch. However, he remained fearless and used his 5-element fist to confront it. Boom! The 2 punches collided fiercely, creating a thunderous explosion. It seemed like they were locked in a standstill, unable to overpower each other. However, at that moment, the mountainous illusion behind the yellow fist imprint suddenly released a tremendous burst of power, crashing down forcefully. Bang! The fist imprint condensed by Wang Ting showed signs of collapse as cracks began to appear, and in no time, it shattered, dissipating into countless flames. Following that, the illusory mountain continued to press down towards Wang Ting. Ha ha ha! Dong burst out laughing when he saw this scene. Do you think you can resist my mountain cleaver power with your fist imprints? Wang Ting's expression changed slightly. This time, he felt the unique power more distinctly. Mountain cleaver power? Without much thought, the power approached him, and Wang Ting swiftly threw out 3 consecutive punches, striking the illusory mountain head-on. Boom, 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 under the explosion of the fist imprints, their attacks shattered, unleashing shockwaves that swept in all directions. Wang Ting was pushed back by the force. The mountain-crushing conscious tried to invade his physical body, but his body, strengthened by the overlapping of 2 physiques, had become incredibly robust, to an almost superhuman degree. Especially the 4th-rank True Dragon Battle physique, Pseudo, which was genuinely capable of withstanding attacks from Heaven stage opponents. Ultimately, he successfully dissipated the force. However, Wang Ting's brief contact with that power triggered something in his mind. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Wang Ting's mind. Mutane Cleaver, Star Cleaver. He suddenly remembered the battle axes he received in the Olent Federation. It was called the Star Cleaver Battle Axe, and it contained the Star Cleaver Ultima. The Star Cleaver Ultima was similar to the Mountain Cleaver power. However, the Star Cleaver Ultima he had comprehended back then was quite different from the Mountain Cleaver power displayed by Wn Dong at this moment. Wn Dong, as a Heaven Stage martial warrior, had a profound understanding of the Mountain Cleaver power that was beyond what an ordinary person could compare with. Chapter 2000 The 100,000 Talented Martial Warriors in My Constellation Society. 1. This Mountain Cleaver power is interesting. But, it's not as good as my Star Cleaver Ultima. Wang Ting's eyes were filled with a gleam of excitement. The Star Cleaver Ultima he had previously comprehended resurfaced in his mind. However, he had only grasped the second level of this Ultima, which was far from Wn Dong's profound understanding of the Mountain Cleaver power. If he could raise the Star Cleaver Ultima, Wang Ting would be able to use this power to suppress his opponent. Initially, he had underestimated this Star Cleaver Ultima and hadn't paid much attention to it. However, after witnessing Wn Dong's Mountain Cleaver power, he suddenly realized that this kind of power was by no means ordinary. He scanned his surroundings and picked up the attribute bubbles Wn Dong dropped. Normally, he would wait until the end of the battle to collect attribute bubbles. But, he was particularly interested in finding out if any of them contained insights into the Mountain Cleaver power constellation force, Earth, *3000 Earth Dragon Claw *1207 Mountains Crumbling Fist *1500 Mountain Cleaver Ultima *300, 10th level, 3000 points of the constellation Earth Force entered Wang Ting's body directly. His constellation Earth Force rose a little. Constellation Earth Force, 2570 30,000, Cosmos Stage 3rd level. Then, there were the two battle techniques. One was a Heaven Stage battle technique Earth Dragon Claw. Wang Ting had already experienced the power of this Earth Dragon Claw, and it was not bad. When facing martial warriors of the same stage, this battle technique had an advantage. Moreover, it was an Earth Element Claw technique, which was a skill he didn't have before, so it could fill a gap in his abilities. In his mind, a vivid image appeared. A claw formed from the constellation Earth Force suddenly manifested, resembling a dragon's claw. It was incredibly sharp but carried a profound sense of weight. He fiercely clawed forward. Boom! With a single swipe, it left a deep claw mark on the ground, showcasing its impressive power. Earth Dragon Claw, Heaven Stage 203,000, well-versed, 200 points of attributes allowed Wang Ting to raise this battle technique to the well-versed stage. The other battle technique was more powerful than the Earth Dragon Claw. It was a battle technique at the peak of the universe stage. 7 Mountains Crumbling Fists. Wang Ting found it incredibly appealing. He had witnessed its strength when used by Wn Dong, and now he directly picked up this technique. A vivid image suddenly appeared in Wang Ting's mind. He could visualize the gathering of the fist imprint, summoning 7 mountainous virtual shadows from the void. These shadowy mountains were incredibly mystical, resembling actual mountain peaks, and exuding a majestic and imposing aura. Boom! The fist imprint traversed the sky, and the 7 mountainous virtual shadows descended with it as if the heavens were collapsing and the earth was shattering, displaying an extreme and terrifying power. This was the true might of the 7 mountains crumbling fist. Such an attack was something ordinary martial artists could hardly withstand. The 7 mountainous virtual shadows. Wang Ting's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Wn Dong had only displayed a single virtual mountain shadow with his fist imprint earlier, indicating that he had much room for improvement. Wang Ting wondered how many mountainous virtual shadows Wn Dong could ultimately summon. It left him curious. The other party was a Heaven Stage martial warrior. It was unlikely that he could only command a single virtual mountain shadow. Wang Ting looked at his characteristics board. 7 Mountains Crumbling Fist, Universe Stage 505,000, well-versed, Wang Ting's grasp of the 7 mountains crumbling fist had reached the well-versed stage. He could conjure 2 mountain shadows. At this point, he had a realization. To condense 7 mountain shadows, he needed to master it to a perfected stage. Additionally, he needed to incorporate the essence of the attack to genuinely manifest the mountain shadows. Otherwise, it would just be superficial, a hollow form. Wang Ting looked at the last attribute bubble. Mountain Cleaver Ultima. As expected, it was the Mountain Cleaver Ultima. What's more, it was the 10th level Mountain Cleaver Ultima. The deep understanding immediately merged into Wang Ting's mind, rapidly elevating his comprehension of this Mountain Cleaver Ultima to the 10th level. Enlightenment flowed into Wang Ting's mind. Learning from the experiences of others is a way to master new skills. Mountain Cleaver is about crushing mountains. Star Cleaver is about crushing stars. The Star Cleaver Ultima was originally derived from the Mountain Cleaver Ultima. Now, with his new enlightenment, he could transform the 10th level Mountain Cleaver Ultima too. Mind you, his enlightenment was at the universe realm, and his earth talent had reached the divine level. With such talent, he could relatively easily transform the insights of an Ultima. Even if it required some time, he could erase the time difference through the use of blank attribute points. On the other hand, as Wang Ting absorbed the attribute bubbles, Wn Dong was stunned to see that Wang Ting had withstood his Mountain Cleaver power, and disbelief filled his eyes. Impossible. At first, he thought that he could suppress Wang Ting with his proudest power, but in the end, Wang Ting managed to resist it. This outcome was truly unacceptable to him. Was Wang Ting really a Cosmos stage martial warrior? This question loomed in his mind, making his expression even more unpleasant. Roar. Within the poison tide, the poison element celestial body beasts once again charged towards the group. The weaker star beasts didn't dare to get too close, but the mid-tier imperial level star beasts weren't afraid at all. Get lost. Wn Dong, impatient and with cold determination in his eyes, slammed his palm down, killing one of the mid-tier imperial level celestial body beasts. However, more and more poison element celestial body beasts were advancing, and with the poison mist surrounding them, they had to keep their guard up and couldn't afford to be distracted. Wan Dong's face showed signs of anxiety. They had been battling their way to this point, and their resources were already heavily depleted. They couldn't afford to be delayed any further. Break the array. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,